Chapter 880. Mortal Sovereign did not refuse Zhou Xuanji's request to oversee the Kunlun Origin Court. And so, Zhou Xuanji took her back to the sovereign's plane. He summoned Jiang Shui and Xian Xianghua. When the two girls saw Mortal Sovereign, they looked a little strange, especially Xian Xianghua. She used to regard Mortal Sovereign as her master. But now she always felt awkward. I will teach you cultivation in the future. I will leave only after the sovereign returns. Mortal Sovereign said expressionlessly. Autarch Crimson Dust said expressionlessly. His tone was very calm, and he had returned to his usual demeanor. Jiang Shui said gracefully, "Then thank you." She had a smile on her face and her eyes. Her heart was as clear as a mirror. He had told her everything that happened between Zhou Xuanji and Mortal Sovereign. Mortal Sovereign nodded and said, "You guys talk first. I will find a place to cultivate." After that, she flew toward the horizon. As soon as she left, the pressure on Xian Xianghua was immediately reduced. "Should I call her sister now?" Xian Xianghua asked with a faint smile. Jiang Shui was startled. She covered her mouth and laughed. Zhou Xuanji said helplessly, "That was just an accident." He and Mortal Sovereign did not have that kind of relationship, and Mortal Sovereign did not want to become his woman directly. So he left it to fate. Next, he told the two girls about his upcoming journey. After listening to him, the two girls frowned. "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. In my opinion, the Kunlun Origin Court has encountered successive disasters because it has been stuck in its own ways and can never get out," Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. He raised his hand and rubbed the long hair of the two girls with a gentle expression. He planned to stay for a few years before leaving. As for Zhou Fa, he would wait a little longer. He believed that Zhou Fa would wait until he appeared. The Kunlun Origin Court was still establishing a new order. He had to wait for the god pillars to be selected. A year later, Zhou Xuanji met with nearly 10,000 god pillars in the Supreme Palace. The 12 ancestors stood at the forefront. Everyone was very nervous facing Zhou Xuanji. No one dared to whisper. They all lowered their heads and waited for Zhou Xuanji to speak. Before coming, they had imagined all kinds of scenes. They thought that this sovereign would be very immature. But they did not expect Zhou Xuanji's aura to be so powerful. Even if he did not deliberately reveal it, they still felt suffocated. The absolute difference in strength made them not dare to have any improper thoughts, only endless reverence. The 12 law ancestors were like this as well. They sighed in admiration in their hearts. It seemed like the Sword Emperor had made a huge breakthrough again. Compared to a few years ago, the pressure that Zhou Xuanji gave them was even greater. Zhou Xuanji said slowly, "You are all the first god pillars. Don't think about taking care of your positions. From now on, there will be another god pillar selection every 1,000 years. The god pillar positions will be voted by the creatures in the divine range. If you can maintain the highest number of votes, you can be re-elected. If you don't have the highest number of votes, you will be replaced. If you fail, you will still have a chance to run for the position of the divine pillar in the future, understand?" The expressions of all the divine pillars changed greatly, falling from heaven to hell in an instant. Even the 12 ancestors of law were shocked. When they thought about it, they were instantly shocked. Such a rule could indeed spur on the divine pillars. If it was the branch master, he would probably overturn the heavens. The divine ranges belonged to the Kunlun Origin Court, but they also belonged to themselves. Zhou Xuanji was very clear about the feelings of the branch masters. When he was the Emperor Sword Divine Range's range master, he did not want to be controlled by others. The god pillars he promoted were not taking away the freedom of the divine ranges. On the contrary, he was giving the creatures in the divine ranges a chance. The range masters might be furious, but everyone would be happy. Who did not want to climb higher and higher? Understood. Who dares not to understand? Senior Mei suddenly shouted. All the god pillars trembled in fear, and they responded in unison. Understood. Nearly 10,000 powerful cultivators shouted in unison. Their aura was so powerful that it seemed like they were going to turn the Supreme Palace upside down. The cultivation of these god pillars ranged from Tao Ancestor to Origin Fusion Divine Lord. After all, many divine ranges were powerful. Their top combat power was Tao Ancestor. Zhou Xuanji looked around and said, Next, I will talk about the future plans of the Kunlun Origin Court. My goal is not just the Kunlun Origin Court and the worlds below. I want to break out of the Kunlun Origin Court. I believe everyone has more or less heard that there are other realms outside the Kunlun Origin Court. They were created by the sages. Before this, Sovereign Darkness and Sovereign Wuxia had been outside. I want to make the Kunlun Origin Court stronger and surpass all the previous eras. Everyone in the palace was dumbfounded. Zhou Xuanji's words made them feel like they were coming from the Arabian Nights. Hold on. According to the sovereign, could it be that there were other realms outside the Kunlun Origin Court that could threaten the safety of the Kunlun Origin Court? Surprise, fear, and excitement filled their hearts, making them feel very confused. The 12 ancestors looked at each other. They could see the excitement in each other's eyes. They were already aware of the threat of other realms. If it was Sovereign Wuxia who said this, they would only be worried. But since it was Zhou Xuanji, they somehow believed him. They saw a kind of hope in Zhou Xuanji, and a kind of domineering aura that Sovereign Wuxia did not have. He had become a sovereign at the age of 2000. Such brilliance had never been seen before. Also, after the God Pillars matter is settled, I will leave the Kunlun Origin Court, Zhou Xuanji continued. Zhou Xuanji continued to speak. With these words, everyone was shocked. Leave. The 12 ancestors were the most terrified. They had already experienced the dark period without sovereigns. They did not want to experience it again. Sovereign, you. The ancestors hurriedly tried to persuade Zhou Xuanji. But just when they opened their mouths, they saw Zhou Xuanji raise his hand. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "It's not that I won't return. This is an invitation from a great sovereign. Do you understand what a great sovereign is? It's someone who is as powerful as me, or even more powerful than me. He has gathered dozens of great sovereigns. I'm going to understand the situation outside the Kunlun Origin Court." Everyone was dumbfounded by his words. Dozens of great sovereigns. Their first reaction was that Zhou Xuanji had gone crazy. Everyone, the Kunlun Origin Court has just been attacked by 3 great sovereigns. We can't be like before. We can't just sit and wait for death. The next plan is for all the divine ranges to stop all wars. All of you must cultivate hard. Without my order, if any divine range dares to start a war, I will annihilate them. Zhou Xuanji said in a deep voice. His domineering aura made all the God Pillars tremble in fear. When you go back, tell your range masters that not only must everyone cultivate hard, but so must the range masters and God Pillars. All of you go back. Origin Court divine soldiers will come to hand over various tasks to you. Just when he finished speaking, Zhou Xuanji waved his right hand and teleported everyone out. Below the sovereign plane, the God Pillars and the 12 ancestors were stunned in the air. They looked at each other in dismay and did not speak for a long time. After a long while, an Origin Fusion Divine Lord sighed in amazement. Our sovereign is really amazing. I'm afraid that if we follow him, we will really surpass the past and present. Chapter 881. Yes, although it was very risky, his decisiveness was indeed very impressive. The previous Supremes never had such foresight like him. That's right. I'm starting to look forward to the future Kunlun Origin Court. That's good too. Without the war, everyone can cultivate in peace. Wouldn't it be inappropriate for a sovereign to meet dozens of grand sovereigns rashly? Don't worry. If he was so rash, he would have died long ago. How old is the Sword Emperor? It's impossible to reach this step by relying on talent alone. The Divine Pillars discussed spiritedly, most of them extremely excited. Senior Mei turned around, looked at them, and said in a clear voice, "All right everyone, supremacy has already confided in you. The future of the Kunlun Origin Court is in the hands of all of us. I hope that you will live up to supremacy's expectations and benefit the Kunlun Origin Court. Go back now." Yes. The Divine Pillars saluted and left one after another. The 12 law ancestors did not tarry and left together. Very soon, the various divine ranges announced a ceasefire. They responded to the Sword Thearch's call and cultivated diligently together. Under Zhou Xuanji's command, the Origin Court began to build momentum. All kinds of news about the outer court domain and the Great Supreme were circulating in the Origin Court. Cultivating for the Kunlun Origin Court. This sentence resounded throughout the Kunlun Origin Court at an extremely fast speed, becoming a declaration passed down by all living beings. Everyone in the Origin Court admired Jizun. Such a method was truly powerful. He could easily unite all living beings into an iron plate. And at the same time, he had also aroused the enthusiasm of all living beings to cultivate. When the news reached Emperor Sword Divine Range, all the disciples were proud. Zhou Xuanji could decisively change the Kunlun Origin Court as soon as he became the sovereign. This had already surpassed many sovereigns. Most of the Supreme Venerables would be cautious for a period of time after they took up their positions. They wanted to take care of the feelings of the various divine ranges. This was because the majority of Supremes were able to ascend to their current positions, thanks to the support of some divine ranges. But Zhou Xuanji's decision was to treat everyone equally. He did not give special consideration to any divine range. Such a supreme being could convince all living beings. Several years later, Zhou Xuanji tore open space-time and came to the outside of the Kunlun Origin Court. He walked slowly in the boundless darkness. The Emperor Sword and Soul Kunlun Sword levitated by his side, giving off black, white, and red lights that illuminated the surrounding 100 kilometers. He was like the sun. Wherever he went, there would be light. Xiao. A voice came. Zhou Xuanji did not need to look to know that it was Zhou Fa. Zhou Fa quickly flew over and said respectfully, "Jizun, you've come." Now, he did not dare to do anything overboard when facing Zhou Xuanji. He nonchalantly glanced at the Life and Death Emperor Sword and the Soul Kunlun Sword. He was shocked. This kind of treasure. He was also a person who loved swords, but this was the first time he had seen such a divine sword. If it weren't for his rationality warning him, he would have continued to stare at the two swords. Lead the way. Zhou Xuanji instructed indifferently. He used to be interested in Zhou Fa, but now, he had no interest at all. He had seen through Zhou Fa's identity. Back then, he had experienced a great war in the northern wilderness region, and ended up in a village, teaching the children there. One of the children wanted to be his disciple, so he taught the villagers how to practice the sword. What was worth mentioning was that this kid had another identity, Jixian. To him, this name was like a star in the sky, a legend. Later on, Jixian accidentally entered the space-time turbulence, and accidentally flew out of the Kunlun Origin Court, encountering the Darkness Sovereign. All of this could only be seen after Zhou Xuanji became the sovereign. His soul source had already reached the pinnacle, and he could see Zhou Fa's past with just a glance. Zhou Fa flew in front, not daring to look back. After leaving the dark area, they entered a universe space that was constantly changing between green and red. This place was filled with a kind of scorching energy gas. If one didn't reach the Saint Realm, they would be turned into ashes immediately. Zhou Xuanji scanned this universe with his divine will. At this moment, his two divine swords suddenly vibrated. Zhou Fa, who was in front, heard the commotion. His body immediately stiffened. "Ha ha ha. You are the sovereign of the Kunlun Origin Court, Zhou Xuanji?" A burst of heroic laughter came. Zhou Xuanji and Zhou Fa turned their heads to look. A man in a yellow robe walked over. His body was surrounded by runes of blue light, and he wore a divine beast crown on his head. His eyes were brimming with vigor as he stared at Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Fa's expression changed the moment he saw him. "How come it's him?" Zhou Fa's eyes widened as waves of shock surged in his heart. Zhou Xuanji asked with a smile, "Who are you?" His divine will captured Zhou Fa's expression. It seemed that Zhou Fa wasn't in the same camp as this person. "You can call me Han Jinggu. I once went to the Kunlun Origin Court and gave pointers to a kid. That kid is called Daohu. I don't know if he's dead or alive." The man in the yellow robe explained with a smile. The yellow-robed man said with a smile. He was very generous. He came to Zhou Xuanji's side and sized him up before praising. "What a good soul origin. The sword Dao you created is very good. I once met a great sovereign with great attainments in the sword Dao. This time I can introduce you to him." Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes. His attention was attracted by Daohu. It turned out that Daohu had received pointers from this great sovereign. No wonder he was so powerful. He curiously asked. What do you think about the sovereign's opportunity? Han Jingu replied. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. You should be thinking the same thing. The courtyard realms are very far away from each other, and the various domains are in different planes. It's also what every single great supreme being wants to gather here. There were many existences like Shen Yinxing. Most of the great sovereigns were still uneasy. It would be a good thing if they could get to know more great sovereigns. Zhou Xuanji nodded and started chatting with Han Jingu. The three of them continued to move forward. Zhou Fa flew in front, extremely nervous. His back was drenched in cold sweat as he tried to remain calm. This kid is your son. He looks like you, but his aura isn't from you. He has many kinds of powers in his body, and this isn't a good thing. Sooner or later, he'll play himself to death. Han Jingu looked at Zhou Fa and asked mockingly. When Zhou Fa heard this, his body stiffened, and he felt very unnatural. Zhou Xuanji replied with a smile. It's not my son. He was also sent by a great sovereign. If it wasn't for that great sovereign, I'm afraid I wouldn't have come. Hearing this, Han Jingu's interest was piqued. He shouted, Hey kid, what's the name of the great supreme being behind you? Zhou Fa turned around and said respectfully, Senior, I don't know either. I was caught as soon as I left the Kunlun origin court. He never revealed his name to me. Han Jingu frowned, his eyes turning sharp. Zhou Fa didn't dare to look him in the eye, and quickly turned his head away. The atmosphere became silent. Zhou Xuanji had a smile on his face, but he was on guard in his heart, in case Han Jingu attacked at any moment. This guy was too close to him. This wasn't a distance that should exist when they first met. However, he wasn't too afraid. Han Jingu was very strong, but he didn't feel a great threat. Han Jingu suddenly said, I'm afraid this meeting won't be as good as we thought. If there is a fight, Brother Zhou, how about you and I join hands? Chapter 882. That's naturally a good thing. Thank you for taking a liking to me. Zhou Xuanji nodded with a smile at Han Jingu's request. If Han Jingu hadn't made this request, he might have thought too much about it. Now it seemed that Han Jingu's interest in him came from finding helpers. Ha ha ha. Alright. If you and I join hands, we will definitely be able to turn misfortune into fortune. Han Jingu laughed out loud. He was in a good mood. Following this, he became even more enthusiastic and began to tell Zhou Xuanji about his experiences outside the court. Han Jingu also came from a Fang court realm, and the ancestor of that Fang court realm was an ancient sovereign of the Kunlun origin court. It was very difficult for the vast majority of supreme beings to die, which was why they all established their own Dao realms that were scattered across different planes. It was very difficult to find all of them. Outside of the court realm, the hegemons and grand autarchs of the court realm were divided into different levels of power. Generally speaking, it could be divided into 9 courts. One court was the weakest, and the other 9 were the strongest. The grand paragons of the 9 halls needed to create or control the realms of the 9 halls. Once the destiny of the 9 halls fused together, their strength would reach the pinnacle. Zhou Xuanji asked curiously, It's very difficult to control the other realms. I saw someone kill dozens of sovereigns. Han Jingu shook his head and said, The supreme martial artists that person killed should have included origin supreme martial artists as well. It's impossible for all of them to be grand supreme martial artists. Besides, killing grand supreme martial artists is much more difficult than controlling other court realms. That's because our souls aren't limitless and can only withstand a single court realm. Furthermore, court realms and court realms will repel each other because of our luck. Since ancient times, how many grand supreme martial artists have died because they tried to forcefully fuse with court realms? Was this the great sovereign's way of playing him to death? Zhou Xuanji suddenly wanted to ask little sovereign, did he die like this back then? They talked and laughed along the way, so it was not boring at all. The one who suffered the most was Zhou Fa. He couldn't hide his flustered emotions at all, and his body kept trembling. Zhou Xuanji was very curious if he was under some kind of evil spell. After all, Zhou Fa wasn't a greenhorn. He had dared to play around with the Kunlun origin court before. Even if he was afraid, he didn't need to go to this extent. They flew for about 20 hours. Zhou Fei suddenly hugged his head and screamed. He stopped and curled up in pain. Zhou Xuanji frowned, and immediately used his divine sense to scan his body. TSK. As expected, he suffered the backlash of the power. This brat is a pitiful worm. To actually be cast with such a sinister curse. He will forever be reduced to a puppet, unable to escape the control of the caster. Han Jinggu said, taking pleasure in Zhou Xuanji's misfortune. He could tell that Zhou Xuanji did not take Zhou Fei seriously. Their relationship was quite strange, which was why he mocked Zhou Fei directly. Zhou Xuanji asked, "Can you recognize the person behind this technique?" Han Jinggu shook his head and said, "I don't know him, but we will meet him later." With a wave of his right hand, a white light flew out from his sleeve and entered Zhou Fei's body. Zhou Fei's body suddenly stretched out, and his screams came to an abrupt end. He looked at his hands in pleasant surprise, turned around and said excitedly, "Thank you for your help, senior." "No need. I can only help you suppress it for a while. Continue to lead the way. This is your only value." Han Jinggu waved his hand, his expression disdainful. He was too lazy to say another word to Zhou Fei. Zhou Fei quickly turned around, and the three of them continued forward. Zhou Xuanji asked curiously, "Since you were also invited, don't you know the route?" Zhou Fei's speed was really too slow. No hurry. It might not be a good thing to go earlier. I also want to see who is behind this brat. Han Jinggu shrugged with a smile, which made Zhou Fei's heart shudder. Zhou Xuanji thought about it. Although they were already very familiar with each other, he still could not tell what Han Jinggu was thinking. In the blink of an eye, about 7 days passed. They came to another cosmic domain. The top of the universe was bright ahead, and countless pink petals floated down. At a glance, there were many floating islands of different sizes. They saw a dragon with 2 heads. Its body was thousands of meters long, and it was coiled in one place. It was sleeping peacefully, and the dragon's scales on its body were giving off a terrifying cold light. Other than this old dragon, there were many other giant beasts hiding in this cosmic space. The destination is ahead. Zhou Fei pointed at an archipelago far away, and said with a nervous expression. There were a total of 12 floating islands in that archipelago. They were like beads strung together. The floating island in the middle was the largest. It was filled with majestic spiritual qi, and was surrounded by clouds and mist. Zhou Xuanji had already sensed a dozen powerful auras, and none of them were weaker than him. He was shocked in his heart. They are really great sovereigns. Han Jinggu's expression was also a little unnatural. Apparently, he was also shocked. 2 great sovereigns come in, a majestic voice came. A majestic voice came. Having heard this, Zhou Xuanji and Han Jinggu immediately flew over, while Zhou Fei stayed where he was. At the same time, beside a lake in the archipelago, short tables were placed on the ground, and a total of 17 Grand Supremes were sitting on each of them, in a meditative posture. Among them, 16 great sovereigns were facing one person. That person had white hair and a youthful face. He was wearing a white robe with peach blossom patterns. He stroked his beard and said with a smile, "The new sovereign of Kunlun Origin Court is coming. Everyone prepare to welcome him." As soon as he said this, the 16 great sovereigns turned around and looked. Shen Yanxing was among these sovereigns. She furrowed her brow with a weird look on her face. He has become the great sovereign of the court realm? How long has it been? She was shocked by Zhou Xuanji's rapid progress. She originally thought that it would take Zhou Xuanji tens of thousands of years, or even longer to officially become a great sovereign of the court. She didn't expect him to succeed now. What has he experienced? Just as she was in shock, Zhou Xuanji and Han Jinggu flew over, and landed in the middle of the great sovereigns. "I'm Han Jinggu. Greetings, everyone." Han Jinggu took the lead, and saluted with cupped hands. His expression was calm as he glanced at everyone present. Zhou Xuanji followed suit, and announced his name. He was also shocked by the appearance of Shen Yanxing. Why is this girl here? This is troublesome. Based on his understanding of Shen Yanxing, this girl would definitely find trouble with him. Sure enough, noticing Zhou Xuanji's peripheral vision, Shen Yanxing revealed a dangerous smile, which made people shudder. Good. 2 fellow Taoists, please take a seat. The old man in the white robe waved his hand and said with a smile. Immediately afterward, two short tables appeared out of thin air on the right of Shen Yinxing. Zhou Xuanji's eyelids twitched as he followed Han Jinggu. Han Jinggu's eyes lit up when he saw Shen Yinxing. He walked up to Shen Yinxing and said with a smile, "Fairy, how about I sit next to you?" "No, let him sit," Shen Yinxing said expressionlessly. Shen Yinxing said expressionlessly, and Han Jinggu's face instantly froze. The other great sovereigns had a strange look on their faces. Their gazes shifted back and forth between Zhou Xuanji and Shen Yinxing. Han Jinggu burst into laughter before he walked to the short table next to him and sat down. Zhou Xuanji was helpless. He could only sit at the short table between the two. "Not bad. Your cultivation has risen so fast. I guess I can't use you as a cauldron now, right?" Shen Yinxing supported her chin with her right hand as she looked at Zhou Xuanji from the corner of her eyes. Chapter 883. Zhou Xuanji didn't answer Shen Yinxing, but glanced at the other great sovereigns. Those great sovereigns were also observing him. His identity as the sovereign of the Kunlun origin court made him the most eye-catching existence. "I am Sovereign Xiaoyao. I used to be the sovereign of the Kunlun origin court. I have left the Kunlun origin court for billions of years. Sword Emperor, how is the Kunlun origin court now?" A middle-aged man dressed like a scholar asked with a smile. His words surprised Zhou Xuanji. Sovereign Xiaoyao. This name also left behind a mark in the long river of history. He reigned for 3 billion years, taking in countless disciples, and the next supreme being was one of his disciples. Many profound methods were passed down from him, and for the cultivation of the later generations, it was of great use. Zhou Xuanji immediately cupped his fists and said with a smile, "Greetings, senior." No one would lie on such an occasion. Sovereign Xiaoyao was very happy. He chatted with Zhou Xuanji. The other sovereigns weren't idle either. They chatted with Han Jinggu. The atmosphere became lively. The old man in a peach blossom robe had been observing all the great sovereigns present with a smile on his face. He looked amiable without any shrewdness. Shen Yinxing didn't speak. She held her chin and looked at Zhou Xuanji. The expression in her eyes kept changing. No one could guess what she was thinking. After some communication, Zhou Xuanji got to know all the great sovereigns present. The old man in a peach blossom robe was called Su Aoxue. He had lived for many years. Some people guessed that he had the cultivation of the great sovereigns of the 3 courts. In this regard, he just smiled and said nothing. Su Aoxue was very calm. He didn't speak much. Most of the time, he let the great sovereigns present communicate freely. After an hour, another great sovereign arrived. This great sovereign's aura was unstable. He had obviously just broken through. In the face of so many great sovereigns present, he was a little nervous. Slowly, the great sovereigns began to talk about their experiences of becoming great sovereigns. Zhou Xuanji also listened carefully. He wanted to learn something from other people's experiences. Ding! The grade of the legendary swords has been successfully updated. The divine swords from low to high are divided into ordinary stone, black iron, bronze, silver, gold, amethyst, glorious gold, heavenly soul, intimidating spirit, celestial shaking, God slaying, Armageddon, ancient gazing, disaster releasing, heaven essence, overturning heaven, connecting heaven, 9 extremes, chaos, mysterious Tao, supreme marquee, vast sky, myriad life fusion, origin court, myriad flower, origin court, lord of karma, cauldron, and great destruction. The sword spirit's voice suddenly sounded out in Zhou Xuanji's mind, and he narrowed his eyes. Myriad flowers, origin court, Lord Karma, cauldron, the great apocalypse. The addition of 3 levels sounded impressive. Zhou Xuanji thought about these 3 names in detail, trying to find out the meaning behind them. This sovereign's opportunity is not that simple. Don't listen to Su Aoxue and agree to whatever he says. You'd better have the same attitude as me. Shen Yinxing transmitted her voice to Zhou Xuanji in a lazy tone. Zhou Xuanji ignored him again. 6 hours later, Shen Yinxing's voice floated into Zhou Xuanji's ears. Don't look at how harmonious these guys are. Maybe they will fight after leaving this island. He said nothing. 10 hours later, Shen Yinxing transmitted her voice. Among the people present, Only Su Aoxue and Sovereign Xiaoyao are truly powerful. The others are just SOSO. Zhou Xuanji was speechless. He found it funny in his heart. This girl is really two-faced. I'm going to leave her hanging and see how much more she can say. Just like that. Even if Zhou Xuanji didn't answer, Shen Nianqing would transmit her voice to him from time to time. Most of them were complaining about the sovereigns present. After a month, 33 great sovereigns gathered by the lake. Most of them maintained their human form, but some of them looked quite strange. It's almost time. Everyone has come from afar. Apart from making friends, you also want to know the whereabouts of the sovereign's opportunity, right? Su Aoxue slowly stood up with his hands on his knees. He glanced at all the great sovereigns and said with a smile, "We all know that there are 3 sovereigns' opportunities in countless planes. One can command all the great sovereigns, unify all the court realms, and usher in the golden age of the primeval sovereign." All the great sovereigns immediately sat up straight, waiting for him to continue. Zhou Xuanji was also very interested in the sovereign's opportunity. He had previously guessed that the Supreme Legendary Sword system was transformed from one of the sovereign's opportunities, but he wasn't sure. The Supreme Legendary Sword system transformed from the Primeval's opportunity was indeed powerful, but it needed to be strengthened step by step. There was no end to it. Compared with the rumored sovereign's opportunity, it was far from it. I found the news of this sovereign's opportunity from a destroyed plane. I don't know who its owner is, but the jade slip he left clearly recorded that there is a sovereign's opportunity in the Myriad Domain Devil Lair. Everyone should have heard of what the Myriad Domain Devil Lair is, Su Aoxue said leisurely. He put his hands behind his waist and walked to the front of the short table. All the sovereigns were shocked. Myriad Domain Devil Lair. The grumpy man almost slammed the table and stood up. "Senior, are you sure you are not joking?" Han Jingu asked in a deep voice. His eyes were filled with anger. The other great sovereign's eyes also turned unfriendly. The previous harmony and cheerfulness had disappeared. Su Aoxue said with a smile, "I'm not joking. Everyone, please calm down. Let me explain in detail. The Myriad Domain Devil Lair is an abyss left behind by the ancient sages when they created the universe. Anyone who enters will die. But have you ever thought about what kind of power could create such an abyss? Can't one jump to another plane after the universe is destroyed? I guess there must be something maintaining the Myriad Domain Devil Lair. It can devour great sovereigns. If it's not the sovereign's opportunity, what is it?" His words made the great sovereigns frown deeply. No one who could reach the cultivation of great sovereign was a fool. The great sovereigns were already thinking about how to retreat. Zhou Xuanji was listening with great interest. It was his first time hearing about the Myriad Domain Devil Lair. He wanted to see how Su Aoxue would continue to make up stories. How could the clue of the sovereign's opportunity appear in a destroyed plane so casually? It was enough for him to come here and meet so many great sovereigns. "Everyone, you may think that I am fooling you. After all, the sovereign's opportunity can only be obtained by one person. I may be using you, but you don't know that there have been many examples of people enjoying the sovereign's opportunity in history. You know about the 18 Purple Sky Formation, right? They shared the sovereign's opportunity. I learned about this from my revered master. He is the descendant of the 18 Purple Sky Formation," Su Aoxue continued. Facing the attitude of the sovereigns, he didn't get angry. He still had a smile on his face. Unfortunately, no one listened to him. Seeing this, he had to change the topic and said with a smile, "Everyone, think about it first. Next, I will give you the wine that I brewed for 1,000,000,000 years." With a wave of his right hand, wine pots appeared on the short table in front of the great sovereigns. Zhou Xuanji stared at the wine pots vigilantly. It can't be poisonous, right? The eyes of the other great sovereigns flickered. They were weighing whether to drink it or not. "Su Aoxue, have you ever been to the Myriad Domain Devil Lair?" Shen Nianqing suddenly asked, instantly attracting everyone's attention. Chapter 884. Yes, I have. That's why I'm asking for your help. I've stayed at the edge of the 10,000 domain demon nest for hundreds of millions of years, and I know that the 10,000 domain demon nest has a stable period. During the stable period, the resentful demons and the demon tide inside will disappear. However, I can't be sure how long the stable period will be. Su Aoshue replied with a serious expression. He stared at Shen Nianqing and continued. This is an opportunity. It is already very difficult for you to become stronger. Don't you want to give it a try? I will go with you. The 10,000 domain devil lair is equally dangerous to you and me. I can't set up an ambush to harm you. His words made the other Grand Supremes fall into deep thought. That was right. No matter how strong Su Aoshue was, it was impossible for him to set up an ambush in the myriad domain demon lair. That was a dangerous place, and anyone who entered would die. Perhaps it wasn't certain death, but none of the creatures that rushed in managed to escape. Zhou Xuanji did not interrupt. He was not interested in the myriad domain devil lair. With his sharp senses, he could tell that this was a trap. If he was Su Aoshue, even if he couldn't obtain the Paragon's opportunity, he wouldn't leak it out. There were only two possibilities. Firstly, it was a lie. Secondly, he had already obtained the supreme opportunity. Therefore, no matter what Su Aoshue said, his heart would not waver. Shen Nianqing was also not interested in Su Aoshue's statement. She had a faint smile on her face and didn't point it out. Everyone, are you afraid that my wine is poisoned? Everyone here is a Grand Supreme, yet you're afraid of a cup of wine? Su Aoshue changed the topic and asked with a smile. Taunt. The faces of all the great Supremes fluctuated between green and red, hesitating as to whether or not they should drink it. Zhou Xuanji suddenly said, Of course we have to drink wine. Why don't we drink it after we succeed? Senior, when are we going to act? As soon as he said that, the other Grand Supremes also joined in. Exactly. The most important thing is the Paragon's opportunity. When are we leaving? This wine can be drunk at any time. Why now? Right now. I just want to find the Paragon's serendipity as soon as possible. That's right. We want to become an existence like the 18 Purple Dome formation. Ha ha ha. I like Sword Emperor's determination. I also agree. Hearing these words, Su Aoshue looked at Zhou Xuanji meaningfully. Then he laughed and said, That's right. That makes sense. He waved his right hand, and all the wine disappeared. The Grand Supremes felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders, and smiles reappeared on their faces. You're finished. He hates you. Shen Nianqing sent a voice transmission to Zhou Xuanji gloating. Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes at her, and did not take it to heart. It seems that you can't separate. He deliberately said this to the existence that was following them. He wanted that guy to retreat. Shen Nianqing covered her mouth and chuckled, saying, It's not just in-laws. I will marry him soon. He can become a grand sovereign thanks to my yin and yang technique. Han Jinggu laughed even louder when he heard this. Zhou Xuanji was speechless. This girl is slandering me. However, he didn't explain. It was best not to explain now. After an hour, the killing intent disappeared. It seemed like the other party had given up. Han Jinggu sighed. This banquet is indeed full of danger. I wonder if it's Su Aoshue, or the other Grand Supremes who can't see through it. If it was Su Aoshue, there was no need to go through so much trouble. That guy was still waiting for them to go to the myriad domain demon lair. It doesn't matter who it is. I've learned a lot from this banquet, and I'm very satisfied. As for the trip to the myriad domain devil lair, forget it. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and smiled. Han Jinggu nodded as well. Ha ha ha. To be able to get to know Brother Zhou and Goddess, I've gained a lot. Let's talk again in the future. Han Jinggu laughed. Zhou Xuanji asked in surprise, You're leaving now? Han Jinggu nodded. A pair of black wings sprouted from his back. He spread them and soared into the sky, quickly disappearing into the space-time turbulence. Brother Zhou, no Sword Emperor, the outside world of the court realm is very vast, and it is also very confusing. One day, you and I will definitely meet again. I believe that at that time, you will surprise me. Han Jinggu left, leaving behind only his hearty laughter. Shen Nianqing jokingly said, This guy is very dangerous. Fortunately, he left. Zhou Xuanji doubtfully asked, What do you mean? Han Jinggu gave him a good impression, but from what Shen Nianqing said, Han Jinggu was far more unfathomable than he thought. Chapter 885. Can't you see? That killing intent isn't directed at you, but at Han Jinggu. This guy pretends to be there to protect you, but in reality, TSK. Shen Yanqing smiled contemptuously. No one knew who she was looking down on. Zhou Xuanji couldn't help but think. It seemed that he hadn't incurred the hatred of the other grand sovereigns. That's good too. It's better to avoid trouble. Then, he and Shen Yanqing continued to fly forward. Zhou Xuanji had left a demon god avatar in the sovereign plane, so he could clearly sense the location of the Kunlun origin court. There were simply too many cosmic domains outside the court. Even a Grand Supreme could easily get lost. Along the way, Shen Yanqing didn't ask Zhou Xuanji how he broke through to Great Sovereign, nor did she mention anything about what had happened before. She told Zhou Xuanji about her experiences outside the court, and Zhou Xuanji was very interested in all sorts of amazing things. The universe domain outside the court was collectively known as the Boundless Universe. No one knew exactly how big the boundless cosmos was, because countless generations of great sovereigns had been opening up their own worlds, expanding the boundless cosmos. Most of the past supremes of the Kunlun origin court were still alive, and they had already created their own court realms. Because of this, the Kunlun origin court was widely known in the endless universe, and it was known as the origin of all living beings. Shen Yanqing's attitude toward Zhou Xuanji had improved significantly. Every time Zhou Xuanji asked her about something, she would patiently answer him. Time passed quickly. Half a month later, the two returned to the Kunlun origin court. I'll go take a look at Golden Crown Divine Lord first. Don't worry about me. After dropping this sentence, Shen Yanqing disappeared. Zhou Xuanji smiled and returned to the sovereign plane. At this moment, Xian Xianghua and Jiang Shui were sitting side by side on the cliff, facing the vast sky as they cultivated. Supremacy Crimson Dust stood behind them, her red dress fluttering in the cool breeze. It was as if she was wrapped in red flames, looking extremely beautiful. The mortal world is the secular world, and the secular world is everywhere. When you cultivate, you can think back to the past. Autarch Crimson Dust said slowly as he stared off into the horizon. She smiled because she saw Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji smiled at her from afar and said nothing. He flew into the Supreme Palace silently to cultivate. Sovereign Hong Chen did not interrupt Xian Xianghua and Jiang Shui's cultivation. He continued to explain to them. Several years later, Sovereign Crimson Dust said, "All right, let's end our cultivation here. The Sword Emperor has returned. You can go and see him." After saying that, Supreme Hongchen turned into a wisp of Hongchen Qi and dissipated. Jiang Shui and Xian Xianghua looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. After so long, his body was wrapped in a layer of beast skin. It seemed that even his golden hair hadn't grown out. Shen Yanqing stood on the high platform in front of him, frowning. No one knew what she was thinking. Golden Crown Divine Lord was uneasy. He gritted his teeth and said, "Master, it really has nothing to do with me. I have never been out of the world before, let alone know a great sovereign." His eyes fell on the ground. A small silver token was lying on the ground. A strange divine beast was carved on it. It looked like a tiger. Shen Yanqing took a deep breath and said, "Do you know what this is? This is the universe kill order. Once this order appears, the person being hunted will die without a doubt. Where did you pick it up?" Golden Crown Divine Lord trembled in fear. He quickly replied, "I picked it up next to the Emperor Sword Divine Range. I was very interested in Zhou Xuanji's divine range, so I went for a stroll. Then I met his son. We had a good chat. Just as we finished talking, this token tore the space and flew over. I took it away." His heart was filled with regret. Previously, he felt that this token was exquisite and gorgeous, so he took it away and hung it around his neck. He didn't expect it to have such a background. Zhou Xuanji's son? Shen Yanqing's brow furrowed even more. She immediately disappeared. On the other side, on a meteorite outside the Emperor Sword Divine Range, Zhou Tanhua was practicing his sword. He held the sword with one hand as his figure kept moving. Lightning intertwined on the blade. The speed of the sword was as fast as the wind, causing the space to ripple like the surface of a lake under a strong wind. Shen Yanqing appeared above the meteorite, looking down at Zhou Tanhua below, sizing him up. "Huh!" she suddenly cried out, looking a little surprised. Zhou Tanhua, who had already reached the Origin Fusion Divine Lord level, didn't notice her arrival. He was still focused on practicing his sword. After a while, Shen Nianqing had a complicated look in her eyes as she murmured, "Zhou Xuanji, I didn't expect your son to be so amazing." Chapter 886. Ever since he assumed the position of the Emperor Sword Divine Range's master, Zhou Tanhua's cultivation had not fallen behind. He had let Daoya Old Man and Xiao Jinghong handle most of the affairs of the Divine Range for the time being. Only when there were big decisions would he ask Zhou Tanhua. Xiao Jinghong was now a deity pillar of the Emperor Sword Divine Range. The 12 ancestors were very understanding. After knowing that Xiao Jinghong was Zhou Xuanji's only disciple, they chose Xiao Jinghong as a deity pillar straight away. No one in the Emperor Sword Divine Range objected to this. Regardless of his identity, Xiao Jinghong's character was still trustworthy. Zhou Tanhua liked to study the sword Dao and create his own sword Dao magical ability. He even accepted some disciples in the Emperor Sword Divine Range. Many disciples believed that his aptitude was not inferior to his father's. At this moment, he felt uneasy as he practiced his swordsmanship. He frowned slightly, feeling that something bad was about to happen. He suddenly stopped and looked up. There were no living creatures in the starry sky above the meteorite. Strange, he muttered to himself, then shook his head and continued to practice. Little did he know that someone was looking at him. Shen Nianqing was still floating above. She wrapped her divine power around herself and isolated the vision of the exterminating divine eyes. She watched for a while and then left. From beginning to end, she did not disturb Zhou Tanhua. As soon as she left, Zhou Tanhua's mood suddenly calmed down. Strange, Zhou Tanhua muttered to himself, and subconsciously looked at the top of Origin Court. Could it be that his father was spying on him? But if it was his father, why would he feel uneasy? Sovereign Plain. Shen Nianqing sneaked in without anyone noticing and broke into the Supreme Hall. Upon seeing her, Xian Xianghua and Jiang Shui immediately stood up and prepared to fight. Zhou Xuanji raised his hand and motioned for them to calm down. Tisk tsk. Isn't it blissful to cultivate with your 2 wives? Shen Nianqing teased, but a strange light flashed in her eyes. Before Zhou Xuanji could reply, she threw out the Universe Kill Medallion, which floated in the air. What is this? Zhou Xuanji asked in astonishment. Jiang Shui and Xian Xianghua looked at each other and immediately guessed his identity. The younger sister of the Mortal World Supreme, Shen Nianqing. Universe Killing Order. Then, she introduced the origin of the Universe Kill Order to Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji frowned. Why had a Universe Killing Order appeared in the Kunlun Origin Court? Could it be that the mysterious existence that had been chasing after them hadn't given up? This kill order is aimed at your son. His talent is extraordinary just like yours. However, you have already become a supreme being and have the protection of the Origin Court. But he is different. In the dark void, Su Aoshua was walking in the air, followed by Zhou Fa and Beast Sovereign. Zhou Fa and Beast Sovereign, who used to be insufferably arrogant in the past, were like 2 walking corpses at this moment. Their heads were lowered, and their temperament was decadent. Su Aoshua looked ahead. His eyes were as indifferent as water. He faintly asked, "Your Excellency, how long are you going to follow me?" Just as his voice fell, a silver crack appeared 100 feet away on the left. A white thigh poked out, followed by a beautiful woman wearing a cheongsam. Her silvery hair was fluttering in the wind. Her face was devastatingly beautiful. The corners of her red lips were raised. She looked extremely enchanting. As soon as he saw her, Su Aoshua couldn't help but frown. He asked in a deep voice, "Qilin Demon, why are you following me?" Qilin Demon covered her mouth and giggled. "I heard that you have information about the Sovereign's opportunity? Why don't you tell us Qilin 9 absolutes? We will give you a Universe Kill Order in the future. How about it?" Su Aoshua frowned and didn't answer immediately. Zhou Fa and Beast Sovereign nervously looked at Qilin Demon. As soon as this woman appeared, they inexplicably felt as if they were facing death. Their bodies turned cold and stiff, unable to move. Universe Kill Order, it's really a big deal. But why do you Qilin 9 absolutes trust me so much? Su Aoshua asked with a faint smile. His eyes were filled with fear. He kept thinking about countermeasures in his mind. Qilin Demon slowly walked over and said with a smile, "It's our business whether we believe it or not. You only have one choice." Threat. Su Aoshua didn't get angry. Instead he smiled and said, "Okay, I agree." Qilin Demon smiled even more happily when she heard this. She was so beautiful, but Su Aoshua and the other two couldn't have any evil thoughts. At this moment, the three just wanted to escape as soon as possible. "It just so happens that I'm planning to go to the Kunlun Origin Court. Why don't you accompany me, lest I can't deal with that sovereign?" Qilin Demon smiled. She stopped less than 10 feet away from Su Aoshua. This distance made Su Aoshua frown. Chapter 887. Why are you going to the Kunlun Origin Court? Su Aoshua asked. His memory of Zhou Xuanji was still fresh. Although Zhou Xuanji was young, his divine energy was very pure. If they fought in the Kunlun Origin Court, it would be very difficult to win. Every Grand Supreme was invincible in their respective court realm, unless the difference in strength was more than 3 courts. The Qilin Demon blinked his eyes and said, "Another peerless genius has appeared in the Kunlun Origin Court, and there are still 2 of them. However, the strongest one has already become a sovereign, and cannot be interfered with. The other one is still growing. Someone asked us, the Qilin 9 Absolutes, to eliminate that brat." As soon as he said this, Zhou Fa and Beast Sovereign's expressions changed drastically. Zhou Xuanji and Zhou Tanhua? Su Aoshua wasn't surprised. The Kunlun Origin Court had produced peerless geniuses since ancient times, so it wasn't strange for 2 of them to appear at once. However, he was very curious as to who had invited the Qilin 9 Absolutes. If one wanted to invite the Qilin 9 Absolutes, one would have to pay a huge price. The Qilin Enchantress laughed mockingly and said, "The other party revealed your supreme being opportunity before we were willing to make a move." Su Aoshua's face changed drastically, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Who was the one who leaked it? Could it be the great sovereigns he had invited before? Didn't those guys not believe it? The more Su Aoshua thought about it, the angrier he got. On second thought, he didn't have the ability to enter the Myriad Domain Demon Lair at the moment, so it wasn't a bad idea to let the Qilin 9 Absolutes go. He even got a universal kill order because of it. In the boundless universe, the value of a universe kill order was immeasurable. This was also the reason why the 9 Absolutes Qilin could look down on everyone. Once the universe killing order was issued, no matter how many Great Hall Supremes you were, you would definitely die. Kunlun Origin Court is the origin of the gods. Are you planning to barge in directly? Su Aoshua tilted his head to look at Qilin Mei and asked doubtfully. He had interacted with Zhou Xuanji before. Zhou Xuanji was definitely a ruthless character. He looked gentle, but his eyes were sharp. To be able to come this far, he must have stepped on countless bones. Qilin smiled charmingly and said, "You will understand when the time comes." Afterward, the 4 of them walked toward the Kunlun Origin Court. Sovereign Plain. Zhou Xuanji, Jiang Shui, Xian Xianghua, Red Dust Sovereign, and Shen Nianqing sat together. The atmosphere was a little quiet. Shen Nianqing crossed her arms in front of her chest, glanced at the 4 people, and said with a smile, "What's wrong? Are you very nervous?" Autark Crimson Dust asked, "Why have you gathered us here?" She looked at her younger sister helplessly. In the past, Shen Nianqing was obedient to her, listened to her everything, and regarded her as the only dependence. Now there was a deep estrangement between the 2 sisters. Even now it had not been completely eliminated. Zhou Xuanji was very calm, waiting for Shen Nianqing to speak. "Naturally, it's for your son. During this time, I have been calculating, and found that the killing intent against Zhou Tanhua is approaching. I want to accept Zhou Tanhua as my disciple. Do you have any objections?" She had seen Zhou Tanhua, and felt that his aptitude was really strong. He might be the next Zhou Xuanji. "No." Xian Xianghua refused without hesitation. Sovereign Hong, Chen also furrowed her brow. She couldn't figure out her sister's true intentions. If Zhou Tanhua was harmed, how would she face Zhou Xuanji? Zhou Xuanji laughed unpleasantly. "He has me as his father. Why does he need to take me as his master?" Shen Nianqing stared at him and said in a serious tone, "His aptitude is not inferior to yours, But you have already become a sovereign. If he stays in the Kunlun origin court, it will only limit his development. I will take him to see my revered master, so that he can grow up quickly." Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji fell into deep thought. He naturally had expectations for his children, but it was too dangerous to leave the Kunlun origin court. Sovereign Hongchen solemnly asked, "Nianxing, you have to consider this matter seriously. There are still people hunting Tanhua outside." Jiang Shui kept staring at Shen Nianxing without saying a word, as if she wanted to see through her. Xian Xianghua, who was a little angry, also calmed down. If what Shen Nianxing said was true, this would be Zhou Tanhua's opportunity. If I want to target him, I can take him away at any time without anyone knowing. Do I still need to discuss with you? Shen Nianxing said in annoyance. She had good intentions, but these guys didn't believe her. She suddenly thought of leaving. Do you have a way to avoid the universe kill order? Zhou Xuanji asked. He really wanted to take out the truth sword to test it, but he felt that it would be too insulting to Shen Nianxing. What's more, can the truth sword work on great sovereigns? Shen Nianxing nodded and said, I have a way to hide his fate. Although it's only for a while, it's enough for me to rush to my revered master's range. At that time, even the 9 absolutes of Qilin, who issued the universe kill order, will not be able to kill him. Her tone was full of confidence, looking down on the 9 absolutes of Qilin. Zhou Xuanji thought for a moment before he waved his right hand, and Zhou Tanhua appeared behind him out of thin air. As soon as he saw the 5 people in front of him, Zhou Tanhua was stunned. He was still holding his sword with a dumbfounded look on his face. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, Sit down, I have something to discuss with you. Zhou Tanhua sat down between Zhou Xuanji and Xian Xianghua in a daze. Seeing him like this, Xian Xianghua couldn't help but touch his head. For some reason, she suddenly felt that this kid was really cute. Maybe it was because they might have to separate. Zhou Xuanji told Zhou Tanhua the ins and outs of the matter. After listening to the entire story, Zhou Tanhua's expression didn't change much. His calmness made Shen Nianxing and Sovereign Hong Chun look up to him. This kid was really like his father. Zhou Tanhua smiled and said, I'm willing to go. Leaving the Kunlun Origin Court can save the Kunlun Origin Court from a calamity. At the same time, I can also obtain opportunities. He looked at Xian Xianghua, raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, Mother, it seems like the position of branch master is destined to belong to you. When Xian Xianghua heard this, she pinched his ear reproachfully. At this time, this brat was still joking. If you go out, you will also be in danger. Don't be in a rush to make a decision, Zhou Xuanji said seriously. Zhou Tanhua nodded. Then he crossed his hands and closed his eyes in deep thought. Shen Nianxing burst out laughing. Zhou Xuanji, your son obviously has an idea, but he is still pretending. Is this inherited? He is so pretentious. As soon as he said this, the corners of Zhou Xuanji and Zhou Tanhua's mouth twitched. When Xian Xianghua and Jiang Shui saw this, they also laughed. It was indeed very similar. Ahem. Then I've decided to leave. But before I leave, I want to see my sister. If I leave without saying goodbye, she'll definitely be very angry. Zhou Tanhua touched his nose and pretended to be serious. Zhou Xuanji nodded. With a wave of his right hand, Zhou Tanhua and Xian Xianghua disappeared at the same time. Shen Nianxing got up and said, It's settled then. Tell him to hurry up. I can feel the killing intent getting closer and closer. It won't be long before it arrives at the Kunlun Origin Court. As her voice fell, she gave Sovereign Hongchen a look, and the 2 women immediately left. Jiang Shui moved to Zhou Xuanji's side and asked softly, Have you really decided? She also regarded Zhou Tanhua as her son. It was natural for her to be worried. Zhou Xuanji calmly said, A young eagle has to soar alone in the end. When I was his age, I had already begun to compete for the position of sovereign. The age gap between him and Zhou Tanhua wasn't big. At least in the Kunlun Origin Court, they could be brothers. Chapter 888. Zhou Tanhua and Xian Xianghua returned to the Emperor Sword Divine Range to explain. In less than 3 days he left with Shen Nianxing. The range master of the Emperor Sword Divine Range was Xian Xianghua. After all, Zhou Shaoxian was too impatient and Xiao Jinghong's cultivation wasn't high enough. It was difficult for him to support the majesty of the Emperor's sword divine range. Zhou Xuanji sent them off. They came to the dark realm outside the origin court. Zhou Tanhua looked back at his father and said with a smile, "Father, don't worry. When I come back, I will definitely become your right-hand man and strengthen the Kunlun origin court with you." He smiled confidently. There was no sadness of parting at all. In fact, he felt very sad in his heart. But in order not to drag Zhou Xuanji down, he felt that he had to act free and easy. Zhou Xuanji rubbed his head and said with a smile, "Then we have an agreement. You have to come back. Don't go away and never return." Looking at him, Zhou Xuanji inexplicably thought of himself. He used to be like Zhou Tanhua. Now he was a sovereign, but he still couldn't cover the sky with one hand and protect his family. This made his heart a little heavy. Shen Nianxing, who was next to him, looked at the father and son. Her emotions were surging. She suddenly remembered the scene in the passageway between the two worlds. She looked at Zhou Xuanji with a complicated look in her eyes. After exhorting a few words, Zhou Xuanji let them set off. "Don't worry, I won't let him die." Shen Nianxing couldn't help but let out a cold snort when she saw Zhou Xuanji looking at Zhou Tanhua. She was a tyrannical existence who had hunted many great sovereigns. How could she be so weak and untrustworthy? Zhou Xuanji nodded before watching Shen Nianxing and Zhou Tanhua leave. Only after they disappeared into the darkness did he slowly retract his gaze. "If I find out who you are, I will make you regret it." Zhou Xuanji's eyes were cold as he muttered to himself. Mumbled to himself. After that, he turned around and returned to the Kunlun origin court. Zhou Tanhua's departure didn't change anything. The Kunlun origin court was still the same. Zhou Xuanji also began to work hard on cultivating. With the 12 law ancestors and the god pillars, the order of the Kunlun origin court was restored. The various origin cities became lively again. Due to the prohibition of war, many living beings in the Kunlun universe came and went in an endless stream. The entire Kunlun origin court seemed to be flourishing with each passing day. The interactions between the divine ranges had also increased. If they couldn't start a war, they would hold a tournament to hone their combat abilities. The origin court turned a blind eye to this. Zhou Xuanji came out of closed-door cultivation and discovered this, and he did not know whether to laugh or cry. He sent a message to the 12 ancestors, telling everyone that they could fight, but they couldn't carry out a divine range war. Completely curbing the slaughter would only produce the opposite of the desired result. As long as it did not affect the divine ranges, Zhou Xuanji had no objections. Some people needed to fight to become stronger, while others needed to take revenge. These emotions could not be suppressed. Time flew by. Zhou Xuanji welcomed his 3,000th birthday. Analyzed that the sword owner has reached 3,000 years old. Gacha started. Ding! Congratulations. The sword owner has obtained Myriad Flower Origin Court 1000 Worlds Banishing Hegemon Sword, Outer Soul Doppelganger. The sword spirit's voice sounded out in Zhou Xuanji's mind. He opened his eyes, which flashed with a purple light. The Myriad Flowers Origin Court that surpassed the Origin Court Reversal Divine Sword. Zhou Xuanji had a feeling. Currently, he was not qualified to use the Thousand Realms Chaotic Executioner Sword. Soon, the sword's information appeared before his eyes. Sword name: Thousand Realms Hegemon Slayer Sword Grade. Myriad Flower Origin Court description: a peerless overlord sword formed by the fusion of 1,000 planes. It contains a horrifying power that can destroy everything. To use this sword, one must have at least the cultivation of the great sovereign of the 5 courts. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. What did 1,000 planes refer to? Only the cultivation of the great sovereign of the 5 courts could use it. This showed how domineering this sword was. After that, he continued to inherit the Outer Soul Doppelganger. A stream of memories flowed into his mind, allowing him to quickly master this divine ability. The Outer Soul Doppelganger divine ability used soul telekinesis to manifest a doppelganger. The doppelganger's aura was exactly the same as the original body, making it difficult to distinguish the real from the fake. The strength of the original body was related to the amount of soul telekinesis consumed. The greatest advantage of this divine ability was that it was difficult to distinguish the real from the fake. Zhou Xuanji smiled satisfactorily. Not bad. Although he only received one legendary sword for his birthday, it was still a huge gain for him. He got up and walked out of the Supreme Palace. On the cliff, Jiang Shui had already prepared a table of dishes and wine, waiting for him. Seeing him walking over, Jiang Shui got up and said with a gentle smile, "Xuanji, congratulations on reaching 3,000 years old." 3,000 years old. For mortals, this was such a long time. But in the Kunlun origin court, Zhou Xuanji was still not old enough to travel alone. Not only was Jiang Shui congratulating Zhou Xuanji, but the 12 ancestors were also busy. The entire Kunlun origin court congratulated Zhou Xuanji together. When everyone learned that Zhou Xuanji was only 3,000 years old, they were all dumbfounded. They knew that Zhou Xuanji was very young, but they didn't know his exact age. Now that they heard about it, they were all stunned. For a moment, Zhou Xuanji was praised as the most powerful genius in history. Congratulations to you too. You are already 3,004 years old, Zhou Xuanji said with a soft smile. Zhou Xuanji said with a soft laugh. He walked to Jiang Shui's side, held her hand, and sat on the bench. Jiang Shui poured wine for him. The two talked about the past while facing the majestic immortal mist. Since Zhou Tanhua left, Zhou Xuanji and Jiang Shui spent most of their time in closed-door cultivation. Under his guidance, Jiang Shui had already reached the Origin Fusion Divine Lord Stage 1. Although Zhou Xuanji's supreme divine power had been growing steadily, it was difficult for it to make a qualitative leap. According to Little Sovereign, if he wanted to break through to the Great Sovereign of the Second Court, he had to master another court. In other words, he had to leave the Kunlun Origin Court. However, the owner of the Universe Kill Order hadn't arrived yet. He couldn't leave. The two talked about the past for a while. Then the topic fell on their children. I wonder how Tanhua is now. He hasn't replied after leaving for so long, Jiang Shui said worriedly. She was most worried about Zhou Tanhua. As for Zhou Shaoxian, she was very safe in the Emperor's Sword Divine range. Zhou Xuanji swirled the wine glass and calmly said, "He's fine. I have a hunch that he will surprise us the next time he comes back." Jiang Shui nodded and said with a smile, "Just like you. Every time you disappear and come back, you will surprise everyone." Zhou Xuanji smiled proudly. Like father, like son. The more powerful Zhou Tanhua was, the more face he would have as a father. "Sword Emperor, can you come out for a gathering?" At this moment, Su Aoshua's voice suddenly came. Zhou Xuanji put down his wine glass. He softly said, "I will go out for a while. Wait for me here." Having said this, he directly left the Kunlun Origin Court, without waiting for Jiang Shui's response. In the Dark Domain, Su Aoshua Qilin Demon, Zhou Fa and Beast Sovereign were waiting. As soon as Zhou Xuanji appeared, the four's gazes quickly fell on him. The Qilin Demon looked at Zhou Xuanji, with an evil smile on his face. He looked like a poisonous scorpion, making people shudder. "Sword Emperor, long time no see. How have you been?" Su Aoshua cupped his fists and said with a smile. He had an amiable look on his face. He was secretly surprised. "How long has it been? This kid's aura has become stronger again." Chapter 889. Not bad. May I know why Senior Su is here? Zhou Xuanji asked as he bowed. He could not help but glance at the Qilin Mei. He could sense that this woman was very dangerous. She tried her best to suppress her murderous intent, but Zhou Xuanji could still sense it. This woman came with ill intentions. Su Aoshua immediately introduced the Qilin charm to Zhou Xuanji. After hearing that the Qilin charm was one of the Qilin 9 absolutes, Zhou Xuanji's eyes narrowed. The Universe Killing Order was created by the Qilin 9 absolutes. Zhou Xuanji was immediately filled with murderous intent. "Sword Monarch, can I see your son?" The Qilin enchantress covered her mouth and smiled. Her demonic tone and expression seemed to have a deeper meaning. "No." Zhou Xuanji shook his head. The Imperial Sword of Life and Death, and the Soul Kunlun sword appeared behind him. His gaze turned sharp. He wanted to fight. Zhou Fa and Beast Sovereign were secretly shocked, especially Beast Sovereign. In his eyes, Zhou Xuanji didn't seem to be any weaker than Su Aoshua. How long has it been? Beast Sovereign thought bitterly. Zhou Xuanji is growing too fast. Previously, when he heard Zhou Fei's words, he felt that it was unreal. Now that he had seen it with his own eyes, he was shaken to the core. His emotions were complicated, and he even wanted to find a hole to hide in. The more powerful Zhou Xuanji was, the more he would lose face. The Qilin demon laughed out loud. She laughed beautifully, as if she had heard a very funny joke. Su Aoshue frowned and transmitted his voice to Zhou Xuanji. The Qilin 9 absolutes are very powerful in the endless universe. Too many great sovereigns have died in their hands. Don't act recklessly. In his opinion, it was just a son. If he died, he could just have another one. It was not worth it to sacrifice his own life for this. Zhou Xuanji looked at the Qilin demon calmly without any fear. As for Su Aoshue, he did not have a good impression of him. This matter had nothing to do with Su Aoshue. If he wasn't here to lead the way, was he here to be a mediator? In his heart, Su Aoshue was already his enemy. The Qilin charm's expression also calmed down. She no longer had a smile on her face as she said coldly, "If you are unwilling, the consequences will be unimaginable." Kunlun Origin Court? So what? They, the 9 absolutes Qilin, were not afraid. You all acted for money and serendipity. If I pay a higher price to buy you all to kill your original employer, will that work? Zhou Xuanji asked. The Qilin enchantress shook her head and said, "We are selling the Universe Kill Medallion. We only sell it and don't take it back. If you want to take revenge, you can also buy the Universe Kill Medallion and let us kill that guy." It was really not a loss to sell and buy. The murderous intent in Zhou Xuanji's heart grew stronger. He was thinking about whether he should act directly. Qilin Mei was a little impatient and said, "Sword Emperor, since you can become a sovereign, you should be a smart person. Adapting to circumstances is the greatest ability to survive. Otherwise, no matter how talented you are, you will still die. To you, the Qilin 9 absolutes is a power that transcends dimensions. We will not destroy the Kunlun Origin Court because of its past. But what about you? Even Wu Zhou has to avoid me." Su Aoshue nodded. He looked so cowardly in Zhou Xuanji's eyes. Back at the banquet, Zhou Xuanji felt that Su Aoshue was unfathomable and had a deep understanding of the Tao. Now it seemed that he had misjudged him. No matter how high one's cultivation was without backbone, what kind of expert was he? It's useless to say more. Zhou Xuanji directly used the sword fusion technique. Except for the Life and Death Emperor sword and the Soul Kunlun sword, all the other swords perfectly fused with his body, making his sovereign divine energy skyrocket. His aura reached its peak. Suddenly, a purple light lit up in the darkness behind him. Strands of purple light rushed over and quickly wrapped around him. The power of the Kunlun Origin Court. In the face of external forces, the Kunlun Origin Court would automatically help its sovereign. It was also Zhou Xuanji's first time using this power. He was inwardly shocked. This is too strong. No wonder little sovereign said that he wouldn't lose in the vicinity of his origin court. In an instant his confidence exploded. He looked down on everything in his eyes. He raised his hands and grasped the Life and Death Emperor sword and the Soul Kunlun sword. Purple light burst forth from his eyes. The aura of the Sword Emperor Sovereign was completely revealed. Su Aoshue and Qilin Mei were shocked at the same time. The Kunlun Origin Court is so strong. Qilin Mei was shocked. His eyes turned cold. Zhou Xuanji raised the Life and Death Emperor sword and poured all the sovereign divine energy in his body into the blade. The next moment, sword light burst forth and rushed up with unstoppable momentum. Without any hesitation, the sword slashed down. Su Aoshue immediately waved his hand and fled with Zhou Fei and Beast Sovereign. Qilin Mei raised her hand and slapped. Immediately, a universe kill order appeared in front of her out of thin air. It quickly grew bigger and blocked the sword chi for her. Boom! The violent sword chi forced Qilin Mei to retreat. She gnashed her teeth and murmured, "This guy." At this moment, she suddenly understood the truth of the legend. Her figure flickered and disappeared into thin air. The universe kill order directly shattered and turned into ashes. Zhou Xuanji, offending the 9 absolutes of Qilin won't end well. Today, I will let you go for the time being. The next time the 9 absolutes of Qilin come, They will not only kill your son, but also slaughter the Kunlun origin court. Qilin Mei's cold voice echoed in the dark domain for a long time. Zhou Xuanji didn't chase after them. He just sneered. It would take time for the 9 absolutes of Qilin to make a comeback. After all, the endless universe was so big. Even great sovereigns couldn't come and go easily. After confirming that the aura of Su Aoxue and Qilin Mei had completely disappeared, Zhou Xuanji returned to the sovereign plane. Jiang Shui was still waiting for him at the table. He appeared beside her and sat down. "What's the matter?" Jiang Shui asked as she poured wine for him. Zhou Xuanji told her everything that had happened. He looked calm and didn't panic at all. After he finished, Jiang Shui asked, "Can you deal with the 9 absolutes of Qilin?" Zhou Xuanji was able to force the Qilin Mei to retreat. This meant that he was very powerful, even in the endless universe. "I'm not sure, but we'll deal with it when it comes. Even if I say that the Tanhua isn't here, the 9 absolutes of Qilin will not give up." Zhou Xuanji shook his head. Jiang Shui nodded. She understood this too. She couldn't help but sigh. "Your enemies are too big. Even if we cultivate with all our might, we can't keep up with you." Following Zhou Xuanji was both blissful and sad. No matter what kind of disaster they encountered, Zhou Xuanji was there to handle it. But at the same time, no matter what kind of enemy they encountered, they could only watch from the sidelines. Zhou Xuanji saw the worry in her eyes and said with a smile, "Your role to me is not to kill enemies with me. It's also very important to appease the rear." Jiang Shui smiled helplessly. She rolled her eyes and suddenly thought of something. She said, "Should I go out and do something too?" Zhou Xuanji touched her nose and said with a smile, "Do what you want to do. I support you." Not to mention Jiang Shui, even Xian Xianghua, Zhou Tanhua, and Zhou Shaoxian would find it difficult to catch up with his cultivation. "Then give me a god position." Jiang Shui tilted her head and said. Jiang Shui tilted her head and pondered. She began to imagine her future plans. Chapter 890. After the Qilin 9 absolutes left, Zhou Xuanji returned to his daily cultivation. He arranged a deity position for Jiang Shui and asked the 12 ancestors to announce it to the entire Kunlun origin court. Shitian goddess. Her job was to control the marriage in the origin court. In the Kunlun origin court, every creature was free in their emotions. But there could only be one Dao companion, just like a wife or a husband. Zhou Xuanji took Jiang Shui around the Kunlun origin court to choose a suitable female companion to serve her. This matter couldn't be handed over to the 12 ancestors, in case they were too cautious. This trip lasted for 3 years. Zhou Xuanji and Jiang Shui chose 18 female cultivators from different divine ranges. All of them had the cultivation of Origin Fusion Divine Lord. Each of them was calm and beautiful, worthy of Jiang Shui's identity. After returning to the sovereign plane, Zhou Xuanji guided the Kunlun origin court's fate into Jiang Shui's body, allowing her to see the fate of all living beings and find the most suitable marriage. Zhou Xuanji asked Jiang Shui to leave some variables. Some marriages couldn't be destined by the heavens. Everything should have variables for there to be hope. Jiang Shui opened her eyes and sighed. Fate is truly mysterious. How many people are willing to sacrifice their lives for their love? In the end, they only get the other party's indifference. How many infatuated men and women have been separated by the world? Love is truly difficult. Only she and Zhou Xuanji were in the palace. The 18 goddesses were waiting outside. So you have to grasp it well and reduce the tragedy of fate in this world, Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. Then, he changed his tone and said meaningfully, "Marriage can only be arranged and cannot be forced, understand? Some marriages may be good for you, but they are torturous for the people involved." Jiang Shui nodded and rolled her eyes at him, saying, "Don't worry, I know all this. Love can't be forced." After that, Jiang Shui began to travel around the Kunlun origin court with the 18 goddesses. With their cultivation, few people in the origin court could hurt them. Moreover, Zhou Xuanji was at the highest point and could see every corner of the Kunlun origin court. If they were in danger, he could immediately take action. No matter how far they were, he could reach them in an instant. After the birth of Shitian goddess, Zhou Xuanji began to cultivate alone. As for Xian Xianghua, she was busy developing the Emperor Sword Divine Range. Sovereign Hongqian took Zhou Shaoxian to the Hongqian Plain to cultivate. Everything was so harmonious. In the blink of an eye, another few hundred years passed. Zhou Xuanji's understanding of the rules of the mortal world became deeper and deeper, but he found that it was too difficult for his cultivation to improve greatly. He summoned Little Supreme Being and told him about his confusion. I didn't expect you to be dissatisfied so quickly. You're just like an animal. Little Sovereign sighed with emotion. In the past, after he became a sovereign, he had wasted a lot of his cultivation time. Zhou Xuanji looked straight at him, which made him feel helpless. If that's the case, you'll have no choice but to go out and search for dynasty realms. Only by devouring them will you be able to break through. However, the majority of dynasty realms have grand sovereigns overseeing them. I'm afraid you'll have to get past them first. Little Sovereign teased. Zhou Xuanji hadn't really fought against a great sovereign yet. When facing Su Aoxue and the Qilin Enchantress, they didn't fight at all. Once he left the Kunlun Origin Court, he would no longer be able to use the power of the Kunlun Origin Court. Zhou Xuanji asked curiously, after defeating a great sovereign, how do I absorb a court realm? The reason why he was able to become a supreme being was because he had obtained the recognition of a supreme being's power. The other court realms definitely wouldn't do. He could only conquer them by force. I will teach you when the time comes. It's useless to tell you now. Different court realms have different absorption methods. You haven't gone to the endless universe. It's hard to explain it to you, Little Sovereign said, waving his hand. Little Sovereign waved his hand. Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji didn't insist. He sighed and said, the Qilin 9 Absolutes haven't made a comeback yet. It's not good for me to leave directly. Little Sovereign already knew about the Qilin 9 Absolutes. He furrowed his brow and said, they are indeed very troublesome. Back then, I had to take a detour when I saw them. But because of you alone, it's impossible to attract all the Qilin 9 Absolutes. They are all very busy. Mentioning the Qilin 9 Absolutes gave him a headache. Back then, he even scolded Zhou Xuanji, thinking that this kid was too impulsive. Zhou Xuanji asked, how many of the Qilin 9 Absolutes can I kill with the power of the Kunlun Origin Court? Only by killing them can I eliminate future troubles. Kill a few people. You must be dreaming. You can't kill any one of them. I know about the Qilin demon from last time. That girl is ruthless. She might not be your match, but if you fight to the death, she will be seriously injured and you will die. Little Sovereign said in a bad mood. He felt that it was necessary to give Zhou Xuanji a blow, to prevent this kid from becoming arrogant. Zhou Xuanji helplessly said, so there is no solution to this situation. I can only wait? Little Sovereign smiled and said, you can send your avatars out to explore and find the whereabouts of the other court realms. It will be convenient for you to act in the future. Zhou Xuanji felt that it was reasonable. His eyes focused as an outer soul avatar directly separated from his eyes and landed in front of him. This outer soul avatar looked exactly the same as him. Even its aura was the same. After thinking for a moment, he divided another 9 outer soul avatars. With a wave of his right hand, he directly sent the 10 outer soul avatars out of the Kunlun Origin Court. TSK, your avatars are very accomplished. It's hard to tell the real from the fake, Little Sovereign said in amazement. He suddenly couldn't see through Zhou Xuanji. It seemed that while he was asleep, this kid had been growing rapidly. Zhou Xuanji just smiled and didn't answer. He then stored the Lesser Supreme Sword in the Supreme Storage and continued to cultivate. In a purple cloud cosmic domain, a huge ship that looked like a flood dragon was sailing. The dragon head was ferocious and as huge as a mountain. There were 2 tall buildings on the ship, both of which were tens of thousands of feet high. Countless creatures were standing on the corridors of each floor. On the deck, the Qilin demon was standing behind a man in a black robe. This man in a black robe was 10 feet tall. He had 4 curved and sharp horns on his head. His long blood-red hair gave him a wild and domineering look. He was wearing a blood-red heavy armor. He looked as if he had climbed out of a blood pool. The Sword Emperor of the Kunlun Origin Court? Interesting. But are you sure your mission target is still in the Kunlun Origin Court? The corner of the man in a black robe's mouth rose. He was smiling arrogantly. Hearing this, the Qilin demon lowered her head and replied, "No, his fate has changed. But the Sword Emperor contradicted our Qilin 9 absolutes. Are we going to let it go?" She gnashed her teeth at the thought of Zhou Xuanji's insolence. The man in a black robe turned around and raised her chin. He then said with a cold smile, "Mayor, Qilin 9 is not afraid of anyone. But there is no need to cause unnecessary trouble. Our current goal is to hurry up and collect opportunity stones, understand? As for the Sword Emperor, when this mission is over, I will personally destroy him. I will also destroy the Kunlun Origin Court along the way. There are always some guys who overestimate themselves in that place." Hearing this, the Qilin demon's eyes lit up. She nodded excitedly. Chapter 891. Big Brother, how far has the main mission evolved? The Qilin demon hugged the black-robed man's arm and asked coquettishly. The black-robed man turned around and looked ahead with a deep look in his eyes. "One more person," he said casually. "Who?" the Qilin demon asked in astonishment. She thought that they were only lacking serendipity stones. "Speaking of which, that person is related to Kunlun Origin Court. You will know in the future that he is a formidable opponent of mine," the black-robed man said softly. The corner of his lips curled into a cruel smile. The Qilin demon fell into deep thought. What kind of existence could become a formidable opponent of her big brother? On the other side, in a dusky universe, Zhou Xuanji's avatar traveled at high speed. He looked around and did not want to miss any clues around him. "Strange, there's the aura of living beings here," Zhou Xuanji mumbled. Zhou Xuanji mumbled. Now that he was in his original consciousness, he could still split his divine will. It was not difficult to multitask to become a great sovereign. It had been 8 years since the avatar left. Only this avatar could sense the aura of living beings. In the boundless universe, the aura of living beings was rare. Take the Kunlun Origin Court for example. Other than the sovereigns, how many people could leave the Origin Court freely? After wandering for an hour, Zhou Xuanji finally sensed the aura of living beings. He flew toward the direction of the aura, and finally stopped before a fist-sized rock. The rock was silver in color and uneven. There were many similar rocks around, but only this one caught Zhou Xuanji's attention. He grabbed the rock and probed it with his divine sense. The next second he saw a world. Court realm. This court realm was extremely huge, like a pyramid. The court realm was at the top, and below it were countless layers of universes. The aura of living beings gathered together, as though they were going to overturn the top of the world. Zhou Xuanji was delighted. He finally found a court realm. Humph! A cold snort resounded beside his ear, which almost shattered his soul. Far away in the Kunlun Origin Court, Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes. There was a silhouette in his eyes. This person was wearing a white robe with blue characters on it. He was handsome and had a jade ruler in his hand. It was the sovereign of the Fang Court realm. Interesting. This guy seems to have just stepped into the great sovereign realm, Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. Zhou Xuanji muttered to himself. The other party did not have enough experience, and only discovered him after he found the court realm stone, which meant that his cultivation was inferior to his. However, if he rushed over, it would take at least a year. If the 9 absolutes of the Qilin rushed over at this time, it would be a disaster. He sighed, feeling very unhappy. Damn the 9 absolutes of the Qilin. One day, I will destroy all of you. He braced himself and asked, "Your father is?" He was shocked. Why did she know his name? He carefully looked at Zhou Shaoxian, and his eyes suddenly widened. She is impossible. How could she be here? Sage Daojing's body began to tremble. He could not believe his eyes. "Hand over the stone in your hand," Mortal Sovereign said softly. As he spoke, the stone in Reverend Daojing's hand flew into his hand. "Ha ha. You." Sage Daojing was furious and panicked. Facing Mortal Sovereign, he did not dare to act rashly. Zhou Shaoxian blinked and said, "You even forgot my father? Then how did you come here? This is the Supreme Plane, the cultivation plane of the Lord of Kunlun Origin Court. No one is allowed to enter." Lord of Kunlun Origin Court. Sage Daojing was so frightened that his body trembled. No wonder the spiritual qi here was so dense. He asked cautiously, "Then why are you here? Could it be that Zhou Xuanji is favored by the Lord of Kunlun Origin Court?" He had a deep impression of Zhou Xuanji. That brat's talent was outstanding, and he was courageous and had many opportunities. He might have been favored by the Lord of Kunlun Origin Court. "My father is the Lord of Kunlun Origin Court," Zhou Xiaoxian giggled. Zhou Xiaoxian giggled. Seeing Sage Daojing trembling in fear, she was very excited. She felt great when she put herself in Zhou Xuanji's shoes. If she was the main character, it would be even better. Sage Daojing felt like he was struck by lightning. He was stunned on the spot, and his mouth opened wide. Mortal Sovereign was playing with the stone with a slight frown. She said in a low voice, "This stone." Chapter 892. Sovereign, what's wrong with this stone? Zhou Xiaoxian looked at Sovereign Mortal World and asked curiously. Her eyes fell on the stone. It looked simple and ordinary. There was nothing special about it. Sovereign Mortal World said softly, "I can't see through it. Maybe you have to let your father see it. But obviously, this stone came from outside the court, because I have never seen such a stone." She glanced at Sage Daojing and asked expressionlessly, "Where did you get this stone? It's impossible for you to break in with your strength." Sage Daojing was extremely nervous. He didn't know how to answer. This was his treasure. How could it be robbed by others? If it weren't for this stone, he would have died long ago. But now, facing Sovereign Mortal World, he didn't dare to act rashly. "Come here." Zhou Xuanji's voice suddenly came, and the three of them were teleported to the Supreme Palace. Sage Daojing looked up and saw Zhou Xuanji sitting on the golden throne. He fell into shock. It's really Zhou Xuanji. Could it be that he was the Lord of Kunlun Origin Court in his previous life? Was that why he was so monstrous? Sage Daojing's mind was in a mess. He didn't speak. Zhou Xuanji was so mighty. He had never seen such a mighty existence. It was as if he was the supreme ruler, controlling everything and looking down on the world. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "Sage, long time no see. You still haven't found the Kunlun Origin Court?" His gaze saw through Venerable Daojing and saw Venerable Daojing's fate. This guy had entered the void boundary before. He was about to enter the Kunlun Origin Court when he encountered a battle between two nine vast heaven sovereigns and was sucked into the turbulence of time and space. In a daze, Sage Daojing obtained this stone by chance. He relied on this stone to cross the universe. After going through many hardships, he finally mistakenly entered the sovereign plane. This stone didn't come from the Kunlun Origin Court. Zhou Xuanji couldn't use the exterminating divine eyes to see its origin. Sage Daojing asked bitterly, "I didn't expect you to be the Lord of Kunlun Origin Court. Can you tell me where the Kunlun Origin Court is? Does it really exist?" He abandoned everything to search for the Kunlun Origin Court. But at this moment he was confused. He even felt that reality was a nightmare. Back then, Zhou Xuanji was under him. If he had stayed, wouldn't he have followed Zhou Xuanji here? When he thought of this, he felt suffocated and aggrieved. The Kunlun Origin Court is far more prosperous than you think. I can arrange for you to enter the Kunlun Origin Court. But this stone belongs to me. How about it? Zhou Xuanji looked at Sage Daojing and said with a light smile. He sighed in his heart. Seeing an old friend again, it was true that things were still the same, but the people had changed. Looking back, most of the people who had left a deep impression on him were no longer around. Chapter 893. Increase the Supreme Divine Power? Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. He was immediately interested in the Serendipity Stone. Little Sovereign continued. Opportunity stones are rare in the endless universe. They are treasures fought over by Grand Supremes. They are even harder to find than the court realm. If you have 10 opportunity stones, you can directly break through to the second court Grand Supremes. The more Zhou Xuanji heard, the more delighted he became. He had learned of another path to become more powerful. He looked up at Little Sovereign with a bit of bitterness in his eyes and asked, "Why didn't you say so earlier? Didn't you say that I can only become stronger by absorbing the realms of the court?" Little Sovereign rolled his eyes at him and snappily said, Opportunity stone, opportunity stone. Don't you understand the word opportunity? How difficult is it? I only managed to obtain one opportunity stone in my entire life. And in order to save my life, I had no choice but to give it up. Speaking of this matter, his face was full of unwillingness. Oh, who could force you to hand over the treasure in your hands? Zhou Xuanji asked curiously. He had always been interested in Little Sovereign's past, especially the cause of Little Sovereign's death. Little Sovereign curled his lips and said, Who else could it be? The 9 absolutes of the Qilin. Those guys wantonly plundered the opportunity stones. It is precisely because of their existence that the opportunity stones became a disaster. Hurry up and absorb it in case the 9 absolutes Qilin divinates this chance stone. After all, you've already been targeted by them. If you attract the chance stone, it won't be good. Zhou Xuanji raised his eyebrows. He did not expect the Qilin 9 absolutes to be so domineering. Why does it sound like he's the overlord of the endless universe? Without hesitation, he began to refine the opportunity stone. Opportunity stones contained massive amounts of energy. Zhou Xuanji could not refine them directly and needed some time. In the dark void, there was a mountain range suspended in the air. It was like a coiled dragon, and its aura was violent and imposing. Within the mountain range, there were verdant hills, clear waters, and green trees everywhere. It was like the beautiful scenery of a fairyland. Zhou Tanhua was sitting on a branch with his legs crossed, and a sword laid flat on his lap. He closed his eyes and quietly touched the scabbard. His black hair fluttered in the breeze, and his aura gradually increased. Shen Yinqing appeared in midair and looked down at him. She nodded with satisfaction and murmured, This kid is really a genius. He is worthy of being his son. Ever since she accepted Zhou Tanhua as her disciple, she had become more and more satisfied with him. Pickstar, come here. An old voice floated into her ears, and she disappeared into thin air. She came to a Taoist temple and knelt on the ground, worshipping the old man who was meditating in front of her. Master, what are your orders? Shen Yinqing asked respectfully. She was arrogant and insufferably arrogant outside, but in the face of her master, she was a good girl. The elder wore a deep blue Taoist robe. He had a head of white hair, and there was a jade hairpin in his hair. His aura was faintly discernible. When he opened his eyes, the light within the Taoist temple became bright. Niaoxing, you should go and invite his father. His expression was calm and unfathomable. Shen Yinqing asked doubtfully, Why did he come? He is the master of the Kunlun Origin Court. If he leaves, I'm afraid the Kunlun Origin Court will be in trouble. The elder replied, The 9 absolutes of the Qilin no longer have the time to deal with him. Hearing this, Shen Yinqing was overjoyed. She had complete trust in her master. She asked curiously, What are the 9 absolutes of the Qilin busy with? They have been collecting opportunity stones since a long time ago. Even I can't guess their purpose. However, they have already gathered and rushed to the Myriad Domain Devil Lair. I reckon that something big is going to happen, the old man said leisurely. His expression was still calm. Shen Yinqing frowned and asked, Aren't we going to stop them? They are not good people. If they dominate the endless universe, all the courts and planes will suffer. The old man shook his head and said, Don't worry, there are many strong cultivators in the endless universe. The 9 absolutes of the Qilin are not invincible. They also have strong enemies. When Shen Yinqing heard this, she became interested in the strong enemies of the 9 absolutes of the Qilin. Just as she wanted to continue to ask, the old man continued, Go and pick up Zhou Xuanji. I am very interested in him. Shen Yinqing immediately saluted and turned to leave. The door of the Taoist temple closed, and a light figure emerged from behind the old man. His true face couldn't be seen clearly. Jiang Feili, how long are you going to stay here? The light figure asked. His voice sounded like he was gnashing his teeth. The old man called Jiang Feili replied, The time is not right. The endless universe seems calm now, but in fact undercurrents are surging. Whoever comes out first will end up the worst. The light figure no longer answered and drilled back into his body. Sovereign plane boom, boom, boom. The giant mountain where the supreme palace was located kept shaking. The The sound of air turbulence could be heard one after another. Inside the palace, Zhou Xuanji was meditating in the air. His body was bursting with strands of purple light, illuminating the entire palace. In his palms, the Opportunity Stone was less than half of its original size. Endless energy poured into Zhou Xuanji's body and turned into sovereign divine power. Half a piece of Opportunity Stone was enough to increase his cultivation by several times. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at the Opportunity Stone in his hand. A hint of reluctance flashed in his eyes. Just half of it. How good would it be if I had more Opportunity Stones? At this moment, his desire to go out became even stronger. He not only wanted to devour the quartz, but also to find Opportunity Stones. He wanted to become the strongest existence in the endless universe. At this moment, footsteps came from the front. He looked up and saw that it was Shen Nianqing. Shen Nianqing's cultivation was higher than his. The space barrier of the sovereign plane was nothing to her. As for the sage manifestation array, Zhou Xuanji had already tacitly recognized her aura to avoid accidentally hurting her. Who told her to always appear and disappear unpredictably? Why are you back? Zhou Xuanji asked as he quickly stored the Opportunity Stone into the supreme storage. Shen Nianqing replied casually, I missed you. What kind of stone were you holding just now? It has a lot of energy. Zhou Xuanji smiled. Only a ghost would believe it. How's the epiphyllum? He continued to ask. After so many years, Zhou Xuanji's cultivation should have advanced by leaps and bounds. Shen Nianqing shrugged and replied, just make do with it. It's only Origin Fusion Divine Lord 7 enlightened. Only Zhou Xuanji's face twitched slightly. Sure enough, the opportunity outside the Kunlun Origin Court is greater. This kit has become stronger. This time, I came back because I want to take you to see my revered master. My revered master said that the Qilin 9 Absolutes have all gone to the Myriad Domain Devil Lair. They won't trouble you for the time being. Shen Nianqing said as she stepped in the air towards Zhou Xuanji. She looked at Zhou Xuanji and sighed in her heart. His son is monstrous, and his father is even more monstrous. Staying in the Kunlun Origin Court, this guy can also become stronger quickly. It's too unreasonable. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow when he heard this. He had finally waited for this opportunity. Why does your revered master want to see me? Zhou Xuanji asked in doubt. He was just a nobody in the endless universe. How could he arouse the curiosity of such a powerful cultivator? Could it be because of his son? Shen Nianqing shook her head and said, I don't know. Don't worry. With me here, he won't harm you. Maybe it's an opportunity. Chapter 894. Zhou Xuanji and Shen Nianqing chatted for a while. In the end, he decided to leave the Kunlun Origin Court with her. But before that, he had to give them some instructions. He went to look for Jiang Shui, while Shen Nianqing went to look for Supreme Hongqin. Sovereign Hongqin wanted to leave long ago. Naturally, she couldn't miss this opportunity. Zhou Xuanji didn't want to hide it from her either. Jiang Shui knew that he was going to leave. Although she was worried, she did not stop him. She could tell that he wanted to go out and search for opportunities. After the two of them spent a few days together, Zhou Xuanji met with the 12 Law ancestors. When the ancestors learned that he was about to leave, they were all shocked. However, knowing that Zhou Xuanji was going to meet an ancient senior from outside the court, they became excited again. Finally, they promised to protect the Kunlun Origin Court, and only then did Zhou Xuanji feel at ease and leave. Zhou Xuanji, Shen Nianqing, and Mortal Sovereign came to the Dark Domain together. Shen Nianqing used her supreme divine power to lead the two of them to fly at full speed. My master's name is Zhang Feili. He's extremely famous in the endless universe, and has lived longer than your little sovereign. When you see him you can't be rude. Shen Nianqing turned around and reminded. She directly ignored Supreme Hongqin. It seemed that the estrangement between the two sisters had not been completely resolved. Compared to Qilin 9 Absolutes, is he stronger? Zhou Xuanji asked. Now the Qilin 9 Absolutes had already become his standard to measure the boundless universe. After all, he had already viewed the 9 Absolutes of Qilin as his number one enemy. Shen Nianqing nodded and smiled proudly. I'm not bragging. At least the leader of the 9 killers of the Qilin is on par with my master. Zhou Xuanji and mortal sovereign were both shocked to hear this. No wonder Shen Yinxing was so powerful. It turned out that her master had such a great background. Zhou Xuanji became interested in Jiang Feili. Why was this ancient almighty looking for him? He continued to ask, "Can you ask your master to accept your sister as a disciple?" Shen Yinxing snorted and said, "Of course, I left her a token before. It's not because of our previous relationship. I just feel that she is talented, and she is also a mortal god." Zhou Xuanji smiled, but did not point it out. Autarch Crimson Dust revealed a smile as well. It had been a long time since she had smiled so sincerely. When Shen Yinxing saw them laughing, she couldn't help but frown impatiently. With two great supremes traveling together, no one dared to find trouble with them, so they were unobstructed. Zhou Xuanji passed by the court realm he had discovered, but he did not stop. Absorbing a court realm required time, and he did not have the time for now. 3 years later, Zhou Xuanji and mortal sovereign came to a mountain range under the lead of Shen Yinxing. From afar, they could feel Zhou Tanhua's aura. The same was true for Zhou Tanhua. He quickly arrived in front of the trio. "Father, Supreme Crimson Dust." Zhou Tanhua excitedly saluted. He still maintained the posture of a teenager. Compared to Zhou Xuanji's impression of him, he was much calmer. Shen Yinxing curled her lips and took the lead. "What about me?" Zhou Tanhua reacted and said, "Greetings, master." However, his gaze was fixed on Zhou Xuanji, and his eyes were filled with delight. He knew that Shen Yinxing had gone to find Zhou Xuanji, but he didn't expect her to come back so soon. Zhou Xuanji sized him up and smiled satisfactorily. "Not bad, looks like you didn't slack off," Zhou Xuanji said with a gratified smile. There was nothing wrong with talent. Hard work was always the most important factor in becoming strong. Zhou Tanhua touched his nose and smiled, neither arrogant nor impatient. We'll go see my master first. Tanhua, take your Sanyang to rest," Shen Yinxing said, waving her hand before leaving with Zhou Xuanji. Supreme Crimson Dust's cheeks were slightly red as she bit her lips. Looking at Shen Yinxing's back, her eyes were filled with bitterness. Zhou Tanhua was stunned. He looked at Supreme Crimson Dust with a strange look in his eyes. "Humph!" Supreme Crimson Dust let out a cold snort. Zhou Tanhua hurriedly lowered his head. On the other side, Shen Yinxing brought Zhou Xuanji into the Taoist temple. Zhou Xuanji also saw Jiang Feili. The first impression this person gave him was that he was unfathomable. He seemed calm, but was filled with evil qi. This kind of evil qi couldn't be identified with the naked eye. It was his intuition. "Revered master, he is here," Shen Yinxing said with a respectful tone. Shen Yinxing said in a respectful tone. Jiang Feili replied, "Okay, you can leave first." Hearing this, Shen Yinxing immediately saluted and retreated. Only Zhou Xuanji and Jiang Feili were left in the Taoist temple. The atmosphere had become silent. Zhou Xuanji bowed and said, "Greetings, senior." Jiang Feili opened his eyes. A cold glint flashed in his eyes. Zhou Xuanji couldn't help but squint. "Zhou Xuanji, the Kunlun Origin Court has never had a sovereign like you. Maybe one day, you will surpass Sovereign Heaven," Jiang Feili said meaningfully. Sovereign Heaven, the most powerful sovereign in the history of the Kunlun Origin Court. That was an ancient legend. Some people even believed that there was no Sovereign Heaven at all. He was just a fabrication made up by later generations. Zhou Xuanji asked, "Have you ever seen a Sovereign Heaven?" Jiang Feili nodded, and then began talking about the past. Before he had attained the Tao, the Cardinal Heaven Realm had already dominated the boundless universe. The Cardinal Heaven Realm had played an indispensable role in the boundless universe's current prosperity. Sovereign Heaven opened up the paths of the universe with boundless divine power, divided the planes, and created the second court realm. After that, more and more great sovereigns imitated him, and more court realms appeared. It could be said that the cultivation method after the great sovereign of the court realm was created by Sovereign Heaven. Zhou Xuanji listened carefully. He didn't expect Sovereign Heaven to have such a status in the endless universe. Sovereign Heaven had disappeared for countless years, and no one knew if they were dead or alive. The Qilin 9 absolutes that you offended are fanatical believers of sovereign heaven. They want to use the sovereign serendipity to create a sovereign heaven and make it theirs, Jiang Feili said faintly. Zhou Xuanji frowned and asked in confusion, can a sovereign heaven be created? Could it be that a sovereign heaven had already fallen, and only a remnant soul was left? If the Qilin 9 absolutes succeeded, the Qilin 9 absolutes might be able to dominate the endless universe with the help of a sovereign heaven. As an enemy of the Qilin 9 absolutes, Zhou Xuanji did not want to see such a scene. A sovereign serendipity is omnipotent. They might really succeed. They have collected a large number of serendipity stones and are heading toward the 10,000 domain devil lair. I hope you can stop them, Jiang Feili said straightforwardly. Having heard this, Zhou Xuanji frowned again. Stop the Qilin 9 absolutes with his strength? Wasn't this pushing him into a pit? Zhou Xuanji looked at Jiang Feili warily. Jiang Feili laughed and said, don't worry, I won't let you die for nothing. When the time comes, I will act as well. The reason why I let you participate is because you are the current sovereign of the Kunlun Origin Court. If you encounter a sovereign heaven's will, you can attract it. Before that, I will help you become more powerful. You have already absorbed the serendipity stones. Do you still want more? Speaking to there, Jiang Feili gave a faint smile. It was as if he had completely seen through Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji was immediately moved. He came out to become more powerful. If he could get rid of the Qilin 9 absolutes, he would naturally do it. This was killing two birds with one stone. It was just that the process would be extremely dangerous. Chapter 895. After hesitating for a while, Zhou Xuanji agreed. Jiang Feili was very happy about this. As expected of the Kunlun Origin Court Supremes, courageous and daring, Jiang Feili laughed loudly. At the same time, he waved his right sleeve, and 15 serendipity stones of different sizes flew before Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji scanned them with his divine will and confirmed that they were really serendipity stones. He was delighted and stored them in the supreme storage. He looked up and asked, when do we act? Jiang Feili shook his head and said, it's not time yet. Go and cultivate first. I'll remind you when the time comes. Zhou Xuanji nodded and saluted before turning to leave. After he left, a figure flew out from behind Jiang Feili. This child is indeed extraordinary. He is very similar to Wu Zhou from back then. However, Wu Zhou betrayed you. Aren't you afraid of repeating his mistakes? The light figure asked coldly. Jiang Feili's expression was calm as he said, he is not Wu Zhou. I believe in my disciple's insight. He is more principled and decisive than Wu Zhou. In his words, Supreme Wu Zhou wasn't even worth mentioning. I hope so. Don't waste your efforts. The figure sighed. Saying so, he went back into Jiang Feili's body. Outside the Taoist temple, Zhou Xuanji played with the opportunity stone in his hand as he flew into the distance. Shen Nianqing suddenly stood in front of him and said with a smile, how is it? Are you satisfied? My master actually gave you the opportunity stone. When I went to find you, weren't you refining the opportunity stone? You even pretended not to let me know. Zhou Xuanji faked a cough. He did not expect this girl to know about serendipity stones. He pretended to be calm and asked, is there a suitable place for me to go into seclusion? Shen Nianqing nodded and turned to lead the way. The two quickly flew to the other side of the mountain. They entered a cave, and after passing through the dark tunnel, they came to a place with verdant hills and limpid water. Blue sky, white clouds, high mountains, flowing water. It was as beautiful as a painting. This is my cave. You can cultivate here in the future. Shen Nianqing pointed to the front and smiled, looking like she was presenting a treasure. Zhou Xuanji nodded and said, thank you, I'm going to cultivate now. In other words, you can leave now. I'll accompany you, Shen Nianqing said with a smile. Her charming smile gave Zhou Xuanji a bad feeling. Zhou Xuanji frowned and instinctively wanted to reject. But this was Shen Nianqing's territory. How could he refuse? Forget it. Zhou Xuanji shook his head. He turned around and flew toward a tall mountain in the distance and landed on its peak. He sat down cross-legged and took out the opportunity stone that he had yet to refine. Seeing him hurriedly enter the cultivation state, Shen Nianqing smiled slyly. 10 years later, Zhou Xuanji began to refine the second opportunity stone. The majestic energy in the opportunity stone fascinated him. He did not allow himself to rest. Instead, he enjoyed this feeling. However, Shen Yinxing came to disturb him. Don't keep absorbing the opportunity stones, or else your foundation won't be stable. I found another Grand Supreme. Let's go hunt. Shen Yinxing grabbed Zhou Xuanji and said excitedly, "A Grand Sovereign? Hunting?" Zhou Xuanji was speechless. Can't you show some respect to great sovereigns? On second thought, he realized that he couldn't blindly increase his cultivation. He needed to fight to digest it. It just so happened that he hadn't fought against a Grand Supreme before. Just like that, Zhou Xuanji left with Shen Yinxing. Not only them, but Mortal Sovereign and Zhou Tianhua also followed. Shen Yinxing said that she wanted to broaden their horizons. Neither of them refused. On the contrary, they were very excited. Along the way, Zhou Tianhua kept asking questions. He couldn't maintain his usual calm. Most of the time, it was Shen Yinxing who answered him. But in the end, Shen Yinxing became impatient and no longer paid attention to him. How many great sovereigns are there in the endless universe? Mortal Sovereign asked curiously. When she was in the Kunlun origin court, she was one of the most powerful cultivators. But when she came to the endless universe, she felt very small. Shen Yinxing shook her head and said, "It's very difficult for great sovereigns to die unless they encounter a stronger opponent. Since ancient times, how much time has passed? Let alone great sovereigns, there are countless court realms. Some stand majestically in the universe, and some are hidden in the dust." The endless universe was the greatest achievement left behind by the sages. It represented boundlessness, infinite hope, and possibilities. Perhaps the first great sovereigns had reached the top because they felt lonely. That was why they had such a magnificent feat. That was why the later great sovereigns had always had a goal to strive for. Zhou Xuanji was thinking about sovereign heaven. Just how strong was that ancestor of the Kunlun origin court? To be able to make the 9 absolutes Qilin a believer, it was probably not something that the 9 halls Grand Supremes could do. Of course, it was also possible that a cardinal heaven expert had been deified. Zhou Xuanji was more inclined to believe the former. They flew for about half a year. They arrived at a vast ocean. This ocean surged aimlessly in space-time, sweeping out for tens of millions of kilometers. The seawater was blue, and there were countless star-like lights in the sea. These lights were all great worlds, and the ocean that gathered together was the court realm. Zhou Xuanji and the others looked over from afar, and were all stunned. "It's so beautiful, I can't bear to destroy it," Shen Yinxing said with a smile. A long silver chain appeared in her hand, and she threw it directly into the blue ocean. The long chain danced and quickly elongated. In the blink of an eye, it became incomparably huge. Boom! The silver chain struck the blue ocean with a domineering aura, and a blue light burst forth, blocking the silver chain. The blue ocean violently fluctuated, and the seawater surged to either side, as if a massive piece of cotton had been struck and deformed. The scene was very spectacular. An extremely powerful aura broke out, enveloping the space-time turbulence. Humph! A cold snort filled with anger resounded. Zhou Tianhua and Hongchen sovereigns' faces turned pale. They felt their blood and qi fluctuating. They felt very uncomfortable. Shen Yinxing immediately rushed over like a sharp arrow and plunged into the blue ocean. Zhou Xuanji did the same. The Life and Death Emperor sword and Soul Kunlun sword appeared in his hands out of thin air. He followed suit and plunged into the blue ocean. Countless great worlds entered his field of vision. In front of him, 2 silhouettes were colliding with each other. Their aura was terrifying, shaking the surrounding space-time. Shen Yinxing held the long silver chain, as if she was holding a sharp whip, wantonly lashing at her opponent. The great sovereign was wearing black armor. His hair was disheveled, and he was holding 2 exaggeratedly huge blades in his hands. His face was hideous. He was crazily casting his divine abilities, but he couldn't suppress Shen Yinxing. Zhou Xuanji used the sword fusion technique. His figure moved and immediately appeared before the black-armored great sovereign. Clang! Clang! The blades and swords clashed. the black-armored great sovereign was caught off guard and was sent flying. This power, the black-armored great sovereign was both shocked and angry. The sovereign's divine energy in his body condensed into a substance, like strands of black smoke overflowing from his body. Shen Nianqing raised her brow as the corner of her mouth rose. She thought to herself, "It seems that he still has a lot of secrets." He recklessly increased his cultivation, and his power is still so strong. Zhou Xuanji didn't know what she was thinking. His mind was already focused on the battle. He wanted to truly feel the battle between great sovereigns. Chapter 896. Who the hell are you? Why did you attack my court realm? The black-armored great sovereign demanded angrily. However, his hands didn't stop waving the two sabers in a frenzy. Saber chi crisscrossed and tore the surrounding space apart. Many of them were destroyed, representing the annihilation of a great world. Zhou Xuanji noticed that the Fang court realm was very stable. Although it was not as stable as the Kunlun origin court, the vitality here was much more prosperous. It seemed that this court world was very well managed. I'll leave him to you, and this Fang Ting realm belongs to me. How about it? Zhou Xuanji asked as he fought. Shen Nianqing curled her lips and said, "All right." This fellow really didn't want to suffer any losses. The two of them joined forces to suppress the black-armored Grand Paragon again. Amidst the vast blue ocean, their auras rose steadily, stirring up the seawater and creating raging waves. The outside world. Zhou Tanhua was so excited that he asked curiously, "What do you think about the strength of that grand supreme being? How much weaker is he compared to my father and master?" Autarch Crimson Dust said in a low voice, "He shouldn't be much weaker than them. Otherwise he wouldn't have such momentum." Even though she was far away, she could still feel the terrifying aura within the blue ocean. The divine power of a grand sovereign was indeed frighteningly strong. At the very least, Crimson Dust's sovereign didn't dare to rashly approach him. Although she was a sovereign of laws, she was still far from being a grand supreme. While they were cheering outside, Zhou Xuanji was already fully immersed in the battle. He activated his battle physique, and his supreme divine power rose to an unprecedented level. Silver light burst forth from the surface of his body, and it was as if a beam of light was crazily attacking the black-armored great sovereign. The two divine swords also displayed extraordinary strength, and they suppressed the black-armored great sovereign to the point where he couldn't resist at all. The sword light of the Soul Kunlun sword kept flickering. Zhou Xuanji's soul origin had already been injected into the blade. It was destroying the black-armored great sovereign's soul in the battle, making him a little dazed. In a battle of this level, a single moment of absent-mindedness could lead to defeat, let alone prolonged absent-mindedness. Sword wounds appeared on black-armored great sovereign's body. His physical body was strong, so even if his neck was cut by a sword, it didn't break. Rumble. Just at this time, the blue sea suddenly became violent, and strands of purple light gathered from all directions, and unstoppably poured into the black-armored great sovereign. The power of the court. Zhou Xuanji had used the power of the Kunlun origin court before, so he was very familiar with this scene. He immediately used the ultimate chaos Dao, and boundless sword chi engulfed the black-armored great sovereign. He did not stop, and continued to use the delusion sea of swords. Divine will transformed into swords, and the swords converged into an ocean, filling the blue ocean, fierce and domineering. Shen Nianqing stopped. She looked at Zhou Xuanji with eyes full of splendor. This guy. She was shocked by Zhou Xuanji's performance. These divine abilities all had their own profoundness, and he continuously unleashed them like a berserk wolf, giving off a majestic aura. If Zhou Xuanji had the same cultivation as her, she might have lost to him. At this moment, she suddenly understood why Jiang Feili wanted her to invite Zhou Xuanji personally. Sure enough, none of the peerless geniuses of the Kunlun origin court were simple. "I want you dead." The black-armored great sovereign roared furiously. With a wave of his arms, Zhou Xuanji and Shen Nianqing felt an unstoppable force coming at them, directly pushing them out of the blue ocean. After coming to the spatial turbulence, Zhou Xuanji's qi and blood were boiling, and his face was slightly pale. The same was true for Shen Nianqing. She then waved her right hand backward, sending Hongchen Sovereign and Shen Nianqing behind her. Zhou Xuanji stared ahead. The blue ocean was surging violently as a giant shining with purple light slowly stood up from the stormy waves. He was holding 2 blades in his hands. It was the black-armored great sovereign from before. "Can you do it?" Zhou Xuanji asked in a deep voice. Wasn't Shen Nianqing very arrogant? Why was she driven out by the other party? Shen Nianqing curled her lips and said, "His own strength is nothing to be afraid of. But now that he has borrowed the power of the court realm, we can retreat. This court realm is stronger than I expected. Let's retreat first and come back next time." "Retreat?" Zhou Xuanji raised his brow, shook his head and said with a smile, "Don't worry, let me test his strength again." After saying this, he rushed toward the black-armored great sovereign without hesitation. The black-armored great sovereign was in a rage. Seeing Zhou Xuanji rushing over, he immediately raised his 2 blades and slashed down with unparalleled momentum. Boom! The 1,000-hand sword Buddha rose from Zhou Xuanji's body. Its 1,000 arms drew a circle as its palms clamped the 2 blades in succession. Zhou Xuanji followed up with a slash. The Life and Death Emperor sword and the Soul Kunlun sword flew out of his hands, transforming into 2 giant dragons that roared and charged. The dragon's roar echoed in the space-time turbulence as the 2 dragons pierced the black-armored great sovereign's chest. Shen Nianqing was stunned. This guy can still hurt the other party? However, the black-armored great sovereign ignored the hole in his chest. His 2 blades crushed the 1,000-hand sword Buddha and slashed at Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji moved away from the space-time turbulence and came to the dark plane on the other side of the space-time turbulence. Just as he was about to go back, the 2 giant blades appeared again. This time, he had no time to dodge. Puff! He spurted out a mouthful of blood as his body broke through the plane wall and fell into the space-time turbulence. Shen Nianqing caught him, and at the same time, swept away Zhou Tianhua Immortal Sovereign with a wave of her hand. Her speed was extremely fast, so fast that the black-armored great sovereign couldn't catch up with them. "Father, are you okay?" Zhou Tianhua asked nervously. Mortal Sovereign's eyes were also locked on Zhou Xuanji. He shook his head and said with a smile, "I'm fine, it's just a minor injury." He wiped the corner of his mouth and began to calm the boiling supreme divine power in his body. "Who told you to show off? Even I am afraid. You still dare to come?" Shen Nianqing said, curling her lips. Her tone was a little disappointed. "This guy is too reckless. If it weren't for her, he would have died." Zhou Xuanji smiled but didn't answer. Even without Shen Nianqing's help, he was confident that he could escape. His physique was the absolute time realm. As long as he escaped into the absolute time realm, no matter how capable the other party was, they wouldn't be able to find him. Unless the other party also had the absolute time realm physique. "Didn't you say that you prey on great sovereigns? Why are you in such a sorry state this time?" Mortal Sovereign asked in doubt. She had heard Shen Nianqing bragging before. She didn't expect that the first time she witnessed Shen Nianqing's battle would be like this. Shen Nianqing curled her lips and said, "Those great sovereigns are either formed by rules or have left their own court realm. I rarely fight in the court realm." Her expression was ugly. This time, she was indeed a little embarrassed. "Then why are you fighting in the court realm this time?" Zhou Xuanji asked curiously. "Is it not as simple as hunting great sovereigns?" Shen Nianqing hesitated for a moment before she sighed and said, "It's for the ancient life lamp. I found out that this lamp fell into the Feng court realm. I want to get it. Don't tell anyone about this. Don't mention it in front of my revered master." Ancient life lamp? Zhou Xuanji and the other 2 were puzzled. What kind of artifact is that? The ancient life lamp is a supreme treasure that has been around for countless years. It can freeze time and space, absorb the souls of great sovereigns, and even reverse karma. It is definitely a supreme treasure for battle, Shen Nianqing said with a yearning look. Chapter 897. Ancient Life Lamp. Zhou Xuanji remembered this name. A treasure that could make Shen Nianqing so eager must be extraordinary. If he has this treasure, why didn't he use it? Mortal Sovereign asked in surprise. Zhou Xuanji only used the power of the court realm. If he really had the ancient life lamp, how could he be so embarrassed? He could have just used the ancient life lamp to defeat the enemy. Shen Yanqing curled her lips and said, "How can he conquer the ancient life lamp? So this treasure doesn't belong to him, but to me. It's destined." In the end, she smiled proudly, as if she had already grasped the ancient life lamp. She was in high spirits. "Are we going back now?" Zhou Tianhua asked. He had a look of wanting to say more. After traveling for so long, they ended up going back with their tails between their legs. This was completely different from what he had imagined. Shen Yanqing rolled her eyes at him and said, "What? You want to go back?" Zhou Tianhua chuckled and shut his mouth. "Let's go back and continue to cultivate in seclusion. Someone didn't even gather enough intelligence and wanted to hunt." What a slap in the face. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said with a smile. These words pierced Shen Yanqing's heart like a knife. She glared at Zhou Xuanji with hatred, but didn't quibble. In today's battle, she had indeed underestimated the strength of the other court realm. In the sea of clouds, a tall tower was surrounded by white clouds. At the top of the tower, black-armored great sovereign sat on the ground. He took off his black armor. His whole body was covered in blood. His face became even more ferocious as he gnashed his teeth and said, "Just you wait. I will definitely take revenge." He rarely went out in his own court realm. Today he had encountered such a disaster. Even if he had driven away the enemy, his anger still couldn't be appeased. He took a deep breath and turned to look at a black lamp behind him. Ancient life lamp. This lamp was 6 feet tall. Its base was slender, and its body was transparent. It was burning with 7 colored flames. At the top was a flower leaf that looked like a scorched leaf. It looked a little eerie. Black-armored great sovereign put his palms together and said piously, "Ancient life lamp, please give me the power to kill those two. Give me the intuition to find them." He repeated the words over and over. After a while, all of a sudden, the ancient life lamp trembled violently, and wisps of charred smoke rose from it, coiling around the black-armored great sovereign like ghosts. He wasn't afraid. Instead, he was excited. Meanwhile, Zhou Xuanji and Shen Yanqing, who were traveling through the spatial turbulence, frowned at the same time. The two of them looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. In that instant, they felt inexplicably uneasy and even suffocated. "What happened?" Zhou Xuanji asked in a low voice with a sharp look in his eyes. He instinctively spread out his divine sense in all directions. Shen Yanqing shook her head and looked around vigilantly. Zhou Tianhua and Supremacy Hong Chen tensed up. They also looked around to guard against sneak attacks. The atmosphere became silent. After a long while, "Is there a problem?" Zhou Tianhua couldn't help but ask. He was an Origin Fusion Divine Lord, and his spirit sense was also very strong. How could he not sense the danger? Zhou Xuanji said, "It's nothing, let's continue." Shen Yanqing nodded, and the supreme divine power that wrapped around everyone suddenly accelerated, quickly taking them and disappearing at the end of time and space. A few months later, they returned to the mountain range. Zhou Xuanji returned to the blessed grotto heavens to cultivate in seclusion. Shen Yanqing went to see Jiang Feili. Zhou Tianhua and Supremacy Hong Chen cultivated separately. After meditating, Zhou Xuanji took out the opportunity stone and continued refining it. The previous battle had stimulated him. This time, he must break through to the great sovereign of the second court. On the other side, in the Taoist temple, Jiang Feili frowned as he stared at Shen Yanqing and said in a deep voice, "What did you provoke? Do you know what you are entangled by now? You have no way to escape." His tone was filled with anger, which made Shen Yanqing raise her brow. Could it be? Shen Yanqing thought of a possibility. A chill immediately welled up in her heart. She subconsciously murmured, "Ancient life lamp." As soon as she said this, Jiang Feili suddenly stood up. "What? You encountered the ancient life lamp? Why didn't you tell me first?" Jiang Feili angrily asked. He was so angry that his beard was trembling. The ancient life lamp is a supreme treasure, but it's also an evil treasure. Are you coveting its ability to distort time and space? Faced with Jiang Feili's questioning, Shen Yanqing's face was livid. She had underestimated the ancient life lamp. "This is troublesome. You You really can't do anything right, but you're good at spoiling things. Jiang Feili pointed at Shen Nianqing and kept cursing. He had originally planned to stop the 9 Absolutes Qilin, but now the ancient honorable life lamp had suddenly appeared. He began to pace back and forth with his hands behind his back. He gritted his teeth and said, "The threat of the ancient life lamp is no less than the 9 Absolutes of the Qilin." Shen Nianqing frowned. She also knew this, so she wanted to get the honored life ancient lamp. They didn't expect to be cursed by the ancient sovereign fate lamp before they even saw it. Her heart sank to the bottom of the pit. Seeing her silence, Jiang Feili sighed. "Forget it. From now on, you can't leave this place." "Did you hear that?" Jiang Feili roared furiously. He was like a completely different person from before. Shen Nianqing was not aggrieved, nor was she afraid. She just nodded with a gloomy face. Then she turned around and walked out of the temple. After the gate of the Taoist temple was closed, she could still hear her master's sigh. She suddenly revealed a strange smile, and a trace of ruthlessness flashed in her eyes. 300 years later, Zhou Xuanji began breaking through to the great sovereign of the 2 courts. But before he broke through, Jiang Feili suddenly sent him a telepathic message, asking him to go to the Taoist temple. Although Zhou Xuanji was in a hurry to break through, he had to give Jiang Feili face. He quickly came to the Taoist temple. "Greetings, senior," Zhou Xuanji bowed. Looking at Jiang Feili again, he found that Jiang Feili's expression was a little heavy. He was no longer as calm as he used to be. Jiang Feili said, "You and Nianqing have been cursed by the ancient life lamp." Zhou Xuanji frowned. It turned out that the uneasiness he felt when he came back was real. "Do you know the origin of the ancient life lamp?" Jiang Feili asked. And before Zhou Xuanji could answer, he began to talk. "A long time ago, there was an evil god. He wanted to devour all the courts and destroy everything, so that reality would no longer exist. He wanted to live alone and enjoy eternal loneliness. The ancient life lamp was transformed by that evil god. He was defeated during the primeval sovereign's era, leaving only the ancient life lamp behind. But at the end of the primeval sovereign's era, someone stole the ancient life lamp. Rumor has it that the evil god was released. After that, history was erased until today. The evil god's power of the ancient life lamp cannot be resisted by great sovereigns. You are now equivalent to being cursed by that evil god. Do you understand the seriousness of the matter?" After speaking, he stared at Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji frowned and asked, "Then what do you want me to do next?" The primeval sovereign's era was extremely distant, even older than the sovereign heaven. "Abandon your body and reincarnate," Jiang Feili said word by word, staring at Zhou Xuanji. Chapter 898. Impossible. Zhou Xuanji flatly refused. He had gone through so many hardships to reach this step. How could he recultivate? Moreover, if he gave up his cultivation, what should he do if his family was in danger again? So what if it was the evil god? He was facing the ancient life lamp, not the evil god himself. Jiang Feili's face turned gloomy when he heard this. Zhou Xuanji was an important part of his plan. He couldn't afford to fail. If Zhou Xuanji was killed by the ancient life lamp before he could stop the Qilin 9 Absolutes, then his plan would be ruined. Thinking of this, his eyes turned sharp. His aura suddenly erupted, enveloping Zhou Xuanji. In this regard, Zhou Xuanji held his head high and puffed out his chest. Facing Jiang Feili's aura head-on, he wasn't afraid at all. He wasn't Jiang Feili's disciple, nor was he a puppet. He didn't force the ancient life lamp. He didn't fulfill Shen Nianqing's promise. Why should he reincarnate and recultivate? For his own good. But his tone was completely different. It was more like coercion. The two stared at each other, giving each other tit for tat. After 3 breaths, Jiang Feili's aura suddenly dissipated. The tense atmosphere also disappeared. Then you should cultivate well, and rely on yourself to survive this tribulation. Go down. Jiang Feili flicked his sleeves and turned around. His tone was very impolite. Zhou Xuanji expressionlessly cupped his hands, bowed and left. After walking out of the temple, Zhou Xuanji flew toward Shen Nianqing's blessed grotto heaven. After returning to the vast world, he was stopped by Shen Nianqing. Shen Nianqing raised her right hand and sealed the blessed grotto heaven. she said with a faint smile. Your face is so ugly. Did my revered master make things difficult for you? Zhou Xuanji shook his head and laughed. He naturally couldn't slander her revered master in front of her. Ignore him. I won't let the ancient life lamp hurt you, Shen Yinqing comforted. Her tone became excited as she clenched her fists and said, I will control the ancient life lamp. When the time comes, I will help you destroy the Qilin 9 absolutes. Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes and said unhappily, Protect yourself first. Even your revered master can't do anything about it. You still want to control it. Can you wake up? After that, he bypassed Shen Yinqing and prepared to go back to continue his breakthrough. Only by becoming stronger would he be able to bring him a sense of security. Shen Yinqing's eyes widened. She grabbed his hand, pulled him and snorted. Shall we make a bet? Zhou Xuanji looked back at her and said, Not coming. This girl was too conceited. She didn't even feel the slightest bit of panic. Shen Yinqing said softly, Let me tell you a secret. I have the means to control the ancient life lamp. In addition, you have to be afraid of my master. He is not as peaceful as he looks. He must have some ulterior motive for taking you in. Zhou Xuanji was surprised. He didn't expect Shen Yinqing to have such an evaluation of his master. He had thought that the master and disciple had a good relationship. Shen Yinqing understood the look in his eyes and snorted coldly. I do respect him, but it doesn't mean that I'm stupid. Take your opportunity stones as an example. He is reluctant to give me so many opportunity stones. Why do I have to hunt great supreme masters everywhere? It's because he has reservations about me. If I'm not mistaken, the mortal god is also one of the chess pieces in his plan. Letting my sister come here is his idea. Zhou Xuanji fell into deep thought. It seemed that Jiang Feili's goal wasn't just to stop the Qilin 9 absolutes. This was a very big game of chess. This plan had begun a long time ago, when he took in Shen Yinqing. Shen Yinqing leaned in front of him and whispered in his ear. Zhou Xuanji, don't trust anyone in this endless universe. The endless universe is not as beautiful as it seems on the surface. Maybe one day, I will also attack you for my opportunity. She took a step back and smiled charmingly at Zhou Xuanji before disappearing. Zhou Xuanji didn't think too much about it. He had heard such words too many times. Right now, all he could think about was breaking through as soon as possible. The breakthrough of each court realm, in addition to the accumulation of quantity, also needed to be guided to create a new dimension in the depths of one's soul. Unlike opening a small world, the court realm was boundless and could accommodate countless universes. It required an extremely stable soul strength and complicated operation of rules. Fortunately, he had Little Sovereign. Little Sovereign could give him guidance when he broke through. This also proved that Little Sovereign had at least the cultivation of a second court Great Sovereign. Before this, Zhou Xuanji thought that he had just entered the Great Sovereign realm and was even weaker than an ordinary Great Sovereign. But now, it seemed that the name Little Sovereign was an insult to this guy. In the blink of an eye, another 100 years passed. Under the guidance of Little Sovereign, Zhou Xuanji successfully broke through to the second court Great Sovereign. His supreme divine power had undergone a qualitative change, shaking the entire blessed grotto heavens. In front of a waterfall, Shen Yinqing looked up and saw waves rippling in the sky like waves. What is this guy's physique? How can he absorb so quickly? Shen Yinqing furrowed her brow. She suddenly felt that she couldn't see through Zhou Xuanji. She knew about the existence of Little Sovereign, but even with the guidance of a powerful expert, it was impossible for him to absorb so quickly. At the same time, in the temple, Jiang Feili opened his eyes. He cried out in surprise, Strange, this kid. He knew that Zhou Xuanji's aptitude was very good, but he didn't expect it to be so outrageous. Doesn't this mean that if I give this kid more opportunity stones, he can continue to break through? And in a short time, thinking of this, Jiang Feili pinched his fingers to calculate Zhou Xuanji's origin. However, no matter how he calculated, he could only calculate Zhou Xuanji's past. He felt that something was wrong. Zhou Xuanji's fate was a little vague, as if it had been pieced together. What the hell is going on? Jiang Feili mumbled to himself. Suddenly, a light shadow appeared behind him. The light shadow said with a mocking smile, Why? Did you feel the change? Jiang Feili nodded with a solemn expression. Give up on him. He is still cursed by the ancient life lamp. Be careful not to burn yourself playing with fire. The light shadow shook his head and said with a smile. Jiang Feili fell into silence and fell into deep thought. The light shadow didn't disturb him and let him think alone. After a long while, Jiang Feili said softly, Forget it, don't need him. The light shadow asked in a cold voice. You want me to kill him directly? Jiang Feili shook his head. His eyes flickered with a terrifying cold light. On the other side, Zhou Xuanji was still consolidating his cultivation. He didn't know that a killing intent was coming. Very good. If you can go to the Eternal God realm, it will be great. The extermination immortal physique can absolutely grow wildly there. Like I said, you have the potential to surpass the previous sovereigns of the Kunlun origin court. Little sovereign's voice resounded in Zhou Xuanji's mind. His words were full of praise. Zhou Xuanji could be said to be lucky to obtain the extermination immortal physique. But wasn't it predestined for him to have such luck? Since ancient times, he wasn't the first person with the extermination immortal physique. But very few people with the extermination immortal physique could grow to his level. Just when Zhou Xuanji was about to answer Little Sovereign, Shen Nianqing suddenly appeared in front of him and said in a low voice, Hurry up! Your trouble is coming. Chapter 899. What trouble? Zhou Xuanji looked up at Shen Nianqing and asked in doubt. He immediately had an answer in his heart. Jiang Feili. That old thing couldn't sit still anymore. Shen Nianqing said in a deep voice. My master wants to make a move against you. When you step out of this world, it will be the time of your death. Don't look at how you have broken through to the second court Grand Supreme. Even if you break through to the 3 courts, you are still not his match. Zhou Xuanji asked with a smile that did not seem like a smile. If so, how can I escape? I'm right under his nose. It seemed that Shen Nianqing already had a countermeasure. Could it be that there was a special and hidden teleportation formation in this blessed enclave? Get ready. I'll bring your wife and son in. Shen Nianqing snorted coldly and disappeared. Zhou Xuanji smiled before closing his eyes and continuing to consolidate his sovereign divine power. The Lesser Supreme Sword, the Life and Death Emperor Sword, and the Soul Kunlun Sword floated around him, rotating and protecting him. Not long after, Shen Nianqing, Mortal Sovereign, and Zhou Tanhua appeared in front of Zhou Xuanji. Seeing that Zhou Xuanji was still cultivating, Shen Nianqing became angry. She rebuked, Aren't you afraid of death? Having heard this, Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and stood up slowly. Let's go, he said calmly. Zhou Tanhua asked excitedly, Father, have you broken through again? He had a look of worship on his face. After being outside the court for so long, he had some understanding of Grand Supremes. How long had it been? His father, who had just broken through to become a first court exalt, had actually broken through again. At this rate, Zhou Xuanji would soon surpass Jiang Feili. Let's stop chatting. Follow me. With a wave of her right hand, Shen Nianqing took Zhou Xuanji and the other 2 away. She turned into a streak of red light and flew towards the horizon, directly entering the waterfall between the mountains. In the next moment, they arrived at the space-time tunnel. How can you be so guarded against your own master? Zhou Xuanji teased, making Shen Nianqing roll her eyes. Autarch Crimson Dust asked curiously, Where are we going next? Kunlun Origin Court? Shen Nianqing shook her head. She looked ahead and moved forward at full speed. My revered teacher's target is Zhou Xuanji. Even if he escapes back to the Kunlun Origin Court, he can still find Zhou Xuanji. Shen Nianqing smiled coldly. The 3 of them were visibly moved when they heard this. They looked at her in surprise, wondering what she was going to do. Isn't it good to let my master fight with the 9 absolutes of the Kirin? Don't worry, we're not going to kill our way into the Myriad Domain Demon Lair. Instead, we're going to the Thunder League, near the Myriad Domain Demon Lair. Shen Nianqing chuckled. When she mentioned the Thunder League, her eyes flashed with a hint of heat. Zhou Tanhua asked curiously, What is the Thunder Alliance? Shen Nianqing did not hide anything, and introduced the origin of the Thunder League to them. In the boundless universe, there were not only independent planes and realms, there were also vast domains that were countless times larger than the Kunlun cosmos. There were many living beings hidden in these domains. Where there were many living beings, it was inevitable that there would be conflicts, and the formation of forces was also inevitable. The Thunder Alliance was one of them. It was one of the giants near the Myriad Domain Demon Lair. It was very open, and did not have many requirements. It was an extremely famous holy land for cultivation, and was also a place where resources gathered. Shen Yanxing wanted to collect more opportunity stones for Zhou Xuanji, and use the power of the Thunder Alliance to deter Jiang Feili. Fighting was forbidden in the Thunder Alliance. This was also the biggest reason why the Thunder Alliance could become a holy land. Your revered master won't retaliate against the Kunlun Origin Court, right? Zhou Xuanji asked with a frown. He had already left the Kunlun Origin Court for some time. He wanted to go back and have a look after breaking through. Shen Yanxing hesitated and said, I don't think so. Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji glared at her and said, Let's go back to the Kunlun Origin Court. Shen Yanxing became angry and rebuked. Is the Kunlun Origin Court so important? Can't you live? Don't you want to part with your other 2 wives? After playing for so many years, aren't you tired of it? I will find you more wives in the future. Zhou Xuanji frowned and said in a deep voice, You are humiliating me. He directly used the sword fusion technique. His aura exploded, breaking through Shen Yanxing's sovereign divine power. Zhou Tanhua and Hong Chen's sovereign's expressions changed drastically. Both of them felt great pressure. Even their souls were trembling. Then let's go back to the Kunlun Origin Court. When my revered master finds trouble with you, don't expect me to help. Shen Yanxing said with a cold snort. With a shake of her shoulder, she suppressed Zhou Xuanji's aura. Her sovereign divine power once again wrapped around them, taking them in a different direction. The atmosphere was silent. No one spoke anymore. Supreme Crimson Dust closed his eyes and focused on his cultivation. Seeing this, Zhou Tanhua also followed suit and cultivated. Shen Yanxing glanced back at Zhou Xuanji with resentment in her eyes. She asked through voice transmission, What's wrong? Are you so narrow-minded? I risked offending my revered master to save you. Can't I make a joke? Zhou Xuanji looked at her coldly and replied, Some things can't be joked about. Shen Yanxing curled her lips. Hearing this, she became even angrier. However, no matter how angry she was, Zhou Xuanji didn't care about her. She was helpless. In the dark domain, the dark ship of the Qilin 9 Absolutes was slowly moving forward. 9 figures were standing on the deck. Among them was the Qilin demon. All of them were wearing black robes and looking straight ahead. Most of their faces couldn't be seen. They were like shadows. The Myriad Domain Devil Lair is just ahead. Are you ready? Of course, the Sovereign Heaven is waiting for us. We have to be careful of the Thunder Alliance and Yin Alliance. They are nearby and might disturb us. Don't worry, they won't dare. I've captured the heirs of many of their higher-ups. They won't start a war. It's this kind of trick again. Haven't you suffered enough? You've forced countless great supremes to perish together with you. The 9 absolutes of the Qilin began to discuss, all of them appearing calm and collected. They were determined to succeed in the following plan. The Qilin demon looked at the man in the lead and whispered, Big brother, I have a bad feeling about this. There was news about the ancient honored life lamp not long ago. Will it affect our plan? The ancient life lamp. The moment this name came out, the other Qilin 7 absolutes fell silent. The leader of the Qilin 9 absolutes was called Qilin Ancient Desolation. This name represented a nightmare in the boundless universe. Facing the reminder of the Qilin Enchantress, the Qilin Ancient Desolation shook his head and smiled. I know where the ancient life lamp is. It is being held by an idiot, and will not cause any trouble for the time being. Idiot! The others could not help but be curious. Who was the Qilin Ancient Desolate talking about? Just as they were about to ask, a violent aura attacked from the front. A dazzling light engulfed the darkness, as if it was going to swallow the giant ship. I finally met you reptiles. A cold snort filled with killing intent was heard, causing the faces of the 9 absolutes to darken. The other party actually dared to call them reptiles. I was wondering who it was. So it's the martial dragon ape. When did you climb out of the coffin? The Qilin demon laughed contemptuously. As she spoke, she took out a blood-colored curved blade from her sleeve. Chapter 900. Qilin 9 Absolutes. Today I will destroy all of you. The martial dragon ape sovereign snorted coldly. The bright light in front of him became even more intense, illuminating the entire universe like the sun was approaching. Whoosh! The sound of something tearing through the air rang out, and countless black arrows of light shot forth, each of them over 1,000 feet in diameter, bombarding the giant ship with an unstoppable force. The 9 absolutes of the Qilin disappeared from the deck at the same time. They turned into 9 huge and ferocious black shadows and rushed forward. Bang! Terrifying forces clashed together, directly shattering this universe domain. Within the space-time tunnel, Shen Yinxing controlled her sovereign divine power to move forward. Zhou Xuanji, who was meditating behind her, suddenly opened his eyes. He frowned and murmured, "This feeling is..." Shen Yinxing looked back at him. Zhou Tanhua and Mortal Sovereign also opened their eyes and looked at Zhou Xuanji in surprise. "It's nothing. I just suddenly felt a bit uneasy, as if something bad had happened," Zhou Xuanji said, shaking his head. He trusted his intuition. Something must have happened. Or perhaps something was about to happen. He took a deep breath and said, "Can you go faster?" Shen Yinxing rolled her eyes. She was already moving forward at full speed. How could she go any faster? "It won't be long before we reach the Kunlun origin court. Don't worry." She turned her head and snorted contemptuously. It was really easy to lose one's mind when it came to love. Zhou Xuanji was usually so calm, but whenever he thought about his family, he would always be filled with worry, which made her feel disdain. The 4 of them continued forward. About 10 days passed. They finally arrived at the Kunlun origin court. Zhou Xuanji heaved a sigh of relief. Nothing had happened to the Kunlun origin court. Jiang Shui, Zhou Shaoxian, and the Emperor Sword Divine Range were still alive and well. All the divine ranges in the origin court were also fulfilling their duties, urging all living beings to cultivate diligently. There were no large-scale wars, and everything seemed so harmonious. Zhou Xuanji returned to the Sovereign Divine Range, while Zhou Tanhua went to the Emperor Sword Divine Range. Mortal Sovereign took Shen Yinxing back to the mortal plane to rest. After entering the Supreme Palace, Zhou Xuanji created some outer-of-soul doppelgangers and moved them out of the Kunlun origin court to guard the various places. If there was an enemy attack, Zhou Xuanji would be able to detect it immediately. He took out the Lesser Supreme Sword and communicated with Little Supreme Sword. "Jiang Feili, what is this person planning? Could it be that he also wants to obtain the Cardinal Heaven?" Little Sovereign touched his chin and frowned, lost in thought. Zhou Xuanji contemplated as he channeled his energy technique. He could not understand why Jiang Feili wanted to deal with him. There was no hatred between the 2 of them, and they had a common enemy, the Qilin 9 Absolutes. There was no reason for them to kill him, just because he didn't agree to reincarnate. Myriad Domain Demon Lair, 9 Ultimate Qilin, Cardinal Heaven, and the Ancient Life Lamp. Little Sovereign thought hard and his brows were almost knitted together. He suddenly thought of something, opened his eyes and cried out in surprise. "I understand. You are the sovereign of the Kunlun origin court, and his goal is the Cardinal Heaven realm. You might become a variable, because you already know that his attention is on the Cardinal Heaven realm. Even if you don't know his true identity, you will still be a potential threat." He clapped his hands in realization. Zhou Xuanji was still frowning and asked, "What relationship do I have with sovereign heavenly beings? Could it be that I can attract Cardinal Heaven experts and make them work for me?" Even so, as long as Jiang Feili did not target him, he would not let a Cardinal Heaven expert deal with Jiang Feili. Or is there a deeper reason? He wants the Cardinal Heaven, and so does the 9 Ultimate Qilin. That's why he wants you to join his plan. When the Cardinal Heaven is resurrected, this invincible sovereign will sense the aura of the younger generation. No matter what divine ability he encounters, the Cardinal Heaven will turn to you. As long as the plan succeeds, the 9 Ultimate Qilin will be led by the nose. He will then let you control the cardinal heaven to destroy the 9 ultimate Qilin. After that, he will find an opportunity to kill you and replace you. After all, you are his disciple. But now, your aptitude makes him afraid, because this plan can't be carried out in a short period of time. If you're already a threat to him by the time the plan is carried out, then wouldn't it all be for naught? After Little Sovereign finished speaking, he started laughing. His laughter was extremely cold. Zhou Xuanji's eyes narrowed as he said, "In other words, Jiang Feili will kill me at all costs. Otherwise, he won't feel at ease even if he controls the cardinal heaven. Moreover, he will even destroy the Kunlun origin court. Even Sovereign Wu Zhou might be harmed? This old thing is too terrifying. He looks so amiable, but I didn't expect him to be so vicious. Yes, therefore, we must take the initiative and join forces with the previous sovereigns of the Kunlun origin court to come and help." Little Sovereign said in a deep voice. He used to be a sovereign. How could he tolerate outsiders destroying the Kunlun origin court? Zhou Xuanji's eyes lit up as he asked, "You can contact the previous sovereigns?" The corner of Little Sovereign's mouth rose as he replied, "Virtuous Great Formation. The number 1 great formation of the Kunlun origin court. Every sovereign of a generation had the power of a sovereign in it." Zhou Xuanji also smiled. "Very good, Jiang Feili. As long as you dare to come, you will die." In the darkness, Jiang Feili was flying forward on his flying sword. A light figure was floating behind him. "Are you sure you want to chase him now?" the light figure asked. After learning that Shen Yanxing had escaped with Zhou Xuanji's group, they were furious. Jiang Feili was searching for the whereabouts of the 4. His potential is too great. If we don't get rid of him, he may become the next ancient genius, or even the next cardinal heaven. Jiang Feili said in a soft voice. His eyes were solemn. Ever since Zhou Xuanji escaped, he had been feeling uneasy. Especially when he thought of Shen Yanxing, he felt even more uneasy. As he recalled some memories, a trace of fear flashed in his eyes. "We will also destroy the Kunlun origin court while we are at it. At that time, we will pretend that it was the Qilin 9 absolutes who did it. After all, the Qilin demon has been there," Jiang Feili said faintly. He had already made a plan after destroying the Kunlun origin court. As long as he found Zhou Xuanji, he believed that he could definitely kill him. The light figure said in a deep voice, "I always feel that something is wrong. That kid is very strange. He is very confident when facing you. It's fine if he is under your nose. But once he leaves, I'm afraid it won't be so easy to kill him. Don't worry, no one can save him. What's more, his backer is just the soul of Little Sovereign. There's nothing to fear," Jiang Feili said indifferently. The light figure sighed, and no longer tried to persuade him. They continued moving forward. After 3 hours, suddenly, a jade disc flew over from the front, spinning at high speed. Jiang Feili stretched out his hand and grabbed it. He took a closer look and exclaimed in surprise, "Is it the legendary White Universe plate? How did it appear here?" He raised his eyes and looked ahead. It was absolute darkness. He couldn't see anything clearly. "Jiang Feili, this treasure is for you. Do you want it?" A cold voice that sounded like a smile yet not a smile came. Jiang Feili's expression changed drastically when he heard this. Without saying a word, he turned around and fled. Chapter 901. Just as Jiang Feili was about to escape, a gigantic golden hand grabbed him from behind and pulled him into the palm of the hand. The light shadow on his body angrily rebuked, "Gu Tianlin, you have no hatred with us. What do you want to do?" Cold laughter came from behind the giant golden hand. "I heard that you want to target the Qilin 9 absolutes. I also have the same intention. Let's cooperate. The White Universe plate is a greeting gift." Jiang Feili's expression turned gloomy. Flames ignited on his body, burning the giant golden hand to ashes. A terrifying and fierce aura erupted. Jiang Feili asked expressionlessly, "What hatred do you have with the Qilin 9 absolutes?" He frowned. His heart was full of doubts. With Gu Tianlin's background, there was no need to be afraid of the Qilin 9 absolutes. This guy could make the Qilin 9 absolutes tremble with just a few words. "I just want to kill them." But my identity doesn't allow me to do it myself. Gu Tianlin's voice came again. His words were full of contempt. Jiang Feili pondered. He looked at the white universe plate in his hand. His eyes turned cold as he said, "Okay, I promise you. But this white universe plate alone is not enough." The light shadow behind him became anxious. It was about to speak when it was absorbed into his body. "Okay, when the myriad domain devil lair begins, I will send my mount to help you. That's it." Gu Tianlin agreed. As his voice fell, the strong light around him disappeared. Jiang Feili's face lit up when he heard this. Jadeite Yamatoutai. Very good. He muttered to himself. He was in high spirits. Kunlun Origin Court Supreme Plane Boom. A pillar of light rose from within the Supreme Palace and rushed into the sky, causing huge waves to appear in the sky. Zhou Xuanji walked out of the hall and looked up. Little Sovereign was floating behind him, looking up. At this time, Shen Nianqing suddenly appeared in front of them. She raised her head and asked in surprise, "What kind of formation is this? What do you want to do?" She furrowed her brows as a trace of fear flashed in her eyes. "Virtuous great formation. Have you heard of it, little doll?" Little Sovereign smiled proudly. Obviously, he still held a grudge against Shen Nianqing for slapping him. Therefore, he would always make fun of Shen Nianqing whenever he got the chance. Shen Nianqing frowned even more. She knew nothing about the virtuous formation, so she couldn't help but ask curiously, "Are you going to deal with my master?" Zhou Xuanji and Little Sovereign nodded tacitly at the same frequency. "What is the secret behind this formation?" she asked. "Nothing. I just want to maximize the power of the Kunlun Origin Court." Little Sovereign replied casually. Zhou Xuanji was expressionless, but he really wanted to laugh. It seemed that Little Sovereign was still wary of Shen Nianqing. He didn't point it out. What if Shen Nianqing found out the truth and tipped off Jiang Feili? If it were Zhou Xuanji, he would definitely do this to repay his teacher. Shen Nianqing shook her head and said, "Even if the power of the Kunlun Origin Court reaches its peak, it will not be my master's opponent. You know nothing about his strength." Little Sovereign looked at her contemptuously and smiled without saying a word. The three of them stopped talking and continued to look up at the virtuous display formation. In the dark void, there was a small island floating. There was only a crooked old tree on the island. A white-haired man was sitting on the ground under the tree. He was dragging a jade zither between his legs. He had a handsome face and dark blue eyes that looked like two stars. He suddenly raised his eyes and looked into the distance. He gently raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Interesting. Someone in the Kunlun Origin Court is asking for help. Sword Emperor Zhou Xuanji. He has reached the great sovereign of two courts, in just over 2,000 years old. It seems that our Kunlun Origin Court is going to produce another peerless genius." He thought for a moment before slowly getting up. "Forget it. Let's go back and take a look. After so many years, there are still people who dare to bully our Kunlun Origin Court." On the other side, in an underground cave that was dripping with water, the faint sound of the wind continued. Sharp thorns emerged from the ground. On one of the huge thorns, a burly man with bare arms was sitting cross-legged. The surface of his body was covered with silver needles. They were trembling slightly, as if the surrounding space was twisting. He suddenly opened his eyes, flames spewing from them as he let out a cold snort. Without hesitation, he disappeared into thin air. At the same time, in various parts of the endless universe, many sovereigns who were cultivating opened their eyes at the same time. Some left angrily, some approached out of curiosity, and many continued to cultivate in disdain. After 7 days, Zhou Xuanji, who was in the Supreme Palace, suddenly opened his eyes. He said softly, "He's here." He directly moved out of the Kunlun Origin Court and came into the darkness. The Life and Death Emperor Sword, Lesser Supreme Sword, and Soul Kunlun Sword were floating behind him, rotating separately. He directly mobilized the power of the Kunlun Origin Court and cast the sword fusion technique. White light burst out from his body. His aura was powerful to the limit. Shen Nianqing appeared beside him and fixed her eyes on him. She saw Jiang Feili flying over on his sword. He had his hands behind his waist and an indifferent look on his face. He saw Zhou Xuanji from afar. He deliberately slowed down and said, "Zhou Xuanji, come here. Don't force me to destroy the Kunlun origin court." Zhou Xuanji, holding the sole Kunlun sword, said with a smile, "I'm afraid it's not enough." He was anxious in his heart. In such a short time, those sovereigns might not be able to catch up. But now, he had to face Jiang Feili. "You are too conceited. The power of the Kunlun origin court isn't as strong as you think," Jiang Feili said calmly as he continued to charge towards Zhou Xuanji. Shen Nianqing shouted, "Master, you really want to kill him?" Jiang Feili remained indifferent, not even answering her. Countless sword shadows appeared out of thin air, enveloping Jiang Feili. In an instant, all of them rained down like a torrential downpour, drowning Jiang Feili. A barrier of light appeared around Jiang Feili's body, blocking all the sword shadows. "Stop!" Right at this moment, an explosive shout sounded out. Sovereign Wu Zhou turned into a beam of intense light and dashed over. He landed before Zhou Xuanji in an instant. He turned to look at Jiang Feili and said solemnly, "Jiang Feili, I'm afraid you're tired of living." Knowing that Jiang Feili wanted to deal with Zhou Xuanji and the Kunlun origin court for the sake of Cardinal Heaven, Sovereign Wu Zhou was infuriated. He already felt guilty towards the Kunlun origin court. So how could he tolerate others destroying the Kunlun origin court? "Wu Zhou, you came at the right time," Jiang Feili said with a sneer. A beam of light rose from behind him, spreading its arms and turning into a terrifying phoenix with a wingspan of millions of meters. It wrapped Zhou Xuanji's group of 3 with its wings. Little Sovereign flew out from the blade and teased, "Junior, can you do it?" Sovereign Wu Zhou glanced at him in surprise and replied, "No, his cultivation is far beyond mine." Zhou Xuanji furrowed his brow. With the support of the Kunlun origin court, he also felt that Sovereign Wu Zhou wasn't that strong. At least, he didn't give him the feeling that he couldn't defeat him. Jiang Feili walked towards Zhou Xuanji and Sovereign Wu Zhou. His eyes were cold as he said faintly, "So you called for reinforcements. Unfortunately, you overestimated the strength of your reinforcements." Just as he finished speaking, the sound of a zither suddenly rang out. Chapter 902. Jiang Feili's expression changed drastically as he turned around. Zhou Xuanji, Supreme Wu Zhou, Shen Nianqing and Little Sovereign also turned their heads. The sound of the zither was bleak, like the wailing of ghosts and the howling of wolves. There was also the sound of a woman crying bitterly, endless resentment mixed with killing intent. "What is this?" Autark Wu Zhou frowned. This zither music actually caused his soul to shudder. Not only him, but the others also felt the same way. Even Jiang Feili was the same. How is this possible? Why would he come? Could it be that he predicted this? Impossible. I clearly deceived the fate of the Kunlun origin court. Jiang Feili's body trembled, his face filled with fear. Seeing him lose his composure, Zhou Xuanji was delighted. Little Sovereign laughed even more wildly. "Old bastard. Are you afraid now? Do you think my Kunlun origin court can be destroyed by a lowly person like you?" He turned his head to look in the direction of the zither and called out, "Grandmaster! Help me! Ancestor!" Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Who was the ancestral master of Little Supreme Zun? Was he also a supreme of the Kunlun origin court? "Little fellow, how did you end up like this?" A chuckle drifted over, its tone filled with ridicule. Little Sovereign was embarrassed and didn't know how to answer. Jiang Feili turned around and cupped his fist towards the darkness, respectfully asking, "Senior Hong Qin, why have you come?" "I don't want to deal with the Kunlun origin court. I just want to capture this brat." Zhou Xuanji raised his brow and sneered. At this moment, no amount of quibbling would be of any use. He had already informed all the sages about Jiang Feili's plan through the sage manifestation array. "Then stay here," Senior Hong Qin said in an overbearing manner, causing Jiang Feili's expression to turn even uglier. There was curiosity in Shen Nianqing's eyes. This was the first time she had seen her master so embarrassed and uneasy. Who was this Senior Hong Qin? The situation was instantly reversed. Supreme Wu Zhou rubbed his chin and clicked his tongue in wonder. Could it be the legendary Rainbow Qin sage monarch, who could destroy an entire court with a single pluck of his zither? Zhou Xuanji and Shen Yinxing were speechless. The ancestor of the little supreme venerables was this powerful? Zhou Xuanji suddenly remembered that he had seen the legend of Rainbow Qin Saint Lord before. It was just that in the Kunlun Origin Court's legends, Rainbow Qin Saint Lord was considered to be a myth, and there were very few records about him. The most detailed record was that he had saved the Kunlun Origin Court. He had played the zither with both hands, and with a single song, he had pulled the destroyed Kunlun Origin Court back to its former glory. He had reversed time and space, pulled back karma, and restored everything that had been destroyed. This method made him the savior of the world. Supreme Wu Zhou's divine ability was very similar to that of Hong Qin Sage Monarch. Hong Qin Saint Monarch, you disregarded your seniority and targeted us. Are you not afraid of karma? The light figure above Jiang Feili's head rebuked angrily. Facing the Rainbow Qin Sacred Monarch, he actually didn't feel much fear. Zhou Xuanji and the others looked at this figure of light in curiosity. This guy actually has an independent consciousness? They thought that the light was a manifestation of Jiang Feili's thaumaturgy. Judging from his tone, he was even more arrogant than Jiang Feili. Since you want to talk about seniority, then I'll kill you. A powerful and domineering voice rang out, startling everyone into turning their heads to look in another direction. A raging flame suddenly appeared in the darkness in that direction. It was like a brilliant flower suddenly blooming, rapidly expanding. Jiang Feili panicked and cried out in alarm. Li Yingyu, why are you here? Supreme Wu Zhou and Shen Yinxing were also shocked. It was as if they had heard something incredible. Zhou Xuanji asked Little Sovereign, "Who is Li Yingyu?" Little Sovereign had a complicated look on his face as he replied, "A junior. I didn't expect him to become a sovereign. No wonder he didn't put me in his eyes back then. At that time, I was the sovereign. I liked to pick geniuses. One time I met him. He threatened to surpass me and even dared to attack me. At that time, the technique ancestor wanted me to execute him, but I didn't do so. I just banished him to some lost land to test him. After that, I didn't hear any news about him until I left the Kunlun Origin Court." Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. In this case, Li Yingyu might be their enemy. Shen Yinxing looked at him and asked, "Why is Li Yingyu also here? What did you do?" She suddenly realized that the virtuous Great Formation wasn't used to fight against Jiang Feili, but to ask for help. Otherwise, how could Hong Qin Saint Monarch and Li Yingyu come at the same time? "You want to destroy my Kunlun Origin Court? You are courting death, and you still ask me why I am here. Sword Emperor, don't panic. With me here, even 10 of him can't kill you." Li Yingyu's overbearing voice came again, as a majestic figure walked out of the huge fireball. His figure was extremely tall and sturdy. His arms were bare, and his whole body was burning with flames. He was like an unparalleled god of fire walking through the air. With every step he took, a spark would appear under his feet. It was very spectacular. Upon seeing Li Yingyu, Jiang Feili's face turned extremely gloomy. The most important thing was that Hong Qin Saint Monarch's zither was still playing. It was as if he was playing music for his end, tormenting his heart. Ha ha ha. At this moment, another burst of arrogant laughter came. Everyone turned their heads and saw a pair of green eyes appear in the darkness. They had no pupils and were looking at them with an evil smile. "Yo, you old demon is also here. I almost forgot that the Kunlun Origin Court still has a sovereign like you," Li Yingyu said with a grin. He looked a little excited. His eyes were filled with fighting intent. Jiang Feili's face turned pale. He clenched his fists, trying to keep calm. However, his nightmare had just begun. Waves of peerlessly powerful auras came from all directions, shaking the darkness. Almost in an instant, the dark void turned into day. "Oh, you're all here? It seems like our Kunlun Origin Court is still of the same branch. After so many years, has the Kunlun Origin Court declined? Even cats and dogs dare to try and destroy the Kunlun Origin Court? How do you think we should kill him? One divine ability per person. Let's see how much he can withstand." Zhou Xuanji and the others looked around. They couldn't tell how many sovereigns had descended. He fixed his eyes on it and took a deep breath. So many supremes. There were at least 20 of them. Shen Yinxing was silent. while Supreme Wuxia was extremely excited. TSK, there are so many acquaintances. Little Sovereign glanced around and said with interest. Jiang Feili's aura was suppressed. His forehead was covered in sweat as he tried to think of a way to escape. With so many Supremes of the Kunlun Origin Court, how could he contend against them all? Damn it! Why is it like this? Why? Why did they all come to save Zhou Xuanji? The Kunlun Origin Court also had a disaster before. Why did they all come this time? Jiang Feili felt that he was going crazy. He had never encountered such a dangerous and embarrassing situation. The light shadow behind him was also frightened. He didn't dare to speak again. Jiang Feili, kneel. A voice filled with boundless saintly might descended from above, accompanied by a great pressure. Jiang Feili coughed up a mouthful of blood as he knelt in the void. The light shadow behind him was crushed and shattered, turning into countless light stars that drifted away without any resistance. Chapter 903. Seeing Jiang Feili kneeling down, Shen Yinxing frowned. In her heart, Jiang Feili was definitely a top-notch almighty being in the boundless universe. Why did she feel that her master was so weak now? No matter what, even if he died, he couldn't kneel. Jiang Feili kowtow and apologized to the Kunlun Origin Court. You dare to target the Kunlun Origin Court? Are you worthy? I should imprint this scene with a spell so that everyone can see it. Ha ha ha. It's time to let the endless universe remember the might of the Kunlun Origin Court. The sage has personally come. Your death can be considered glorious. The autarchs mocked Jiang Feili to their heart's content. Aside from Li Yingyu, the other autarchs did not reveal their true forms, but their might continued to envelop this dark domain. Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji's blood boiled. No matter how stable his Dao heart was, he could not remain calm at this moment. The gathering of sages proved the foundation of the Kunlun Origin Court. The name of the origin of all living beings was not just for show. Under their gazes, Jiang Feili's body trembled in extreme fear. He suddenly thought of something. He flipped his right hand, and the white universe plate appeared in his hand. I will never forget what happened today, he roared hoarsely. Then he suddenly crushed the white universe plate. The plate of white fate. This old man. Sovereign Wu Zhou's eyes widened as he exclaimed. But before he could finish speaking, Jiang Feili vanished into thin air. Zhou Xuanji frowned. If Jiang Feili escaped, there would be endless trouble in the future. After all, it would be very difficult to gather so many Supremes to help again. They could already be considered repaying the kindness of the Kunlun Origin Court by coming here once. I'm here, and you still want to escape? The Rainbow Qin Saint's light laughter rang out, and the sound of the zither suddenly changed, becoming harsh and sharp. Ah! Jiang Feili's screams followed, and in the next second, he reappeared at the place where he had just disappeared. At this moment he was covered in blood, and his clothes were ragged. He was in an extremely sorry state. Supreme Wu Zhou let out a sigh of relief and sighed. The sage is invincible. Zhou Xuanji and Shen Yinxing were also shocked. None of them had seen what had happened, but it was precisely because of this that they were shocked. No matter what methods Jiang Feili used, he could not escape from Hong Qin Sage's eyes. TSK, the sage's cultivation is truly unfathomable. In the current boundless universe, there aren't many who can stand shoulder to shoulder with the Saint Monarch. Senior is a senior indeed. Actually, we don't need to come. It's enough to have him. Jiang Feili is also a famous person, but it's a pity that he dared to find trouble with our Kunlun Origin Court. Does he really think that our descendants have no backing? His death is not to be regretted. The voices of the supreme martial artists rang out again. They were all in awe of Hong Qin's sacred monarch's strength. Li Yingyu appeared behind Jiang Feili in a single step. His right palm landed on the top of Jiang Feili's head, and a terrifying flame ignited on his palm. Jiang Feili didn't even have time to scream before he was burned into a puddle of blood, and his soul turned into smoke. He had fallen. A great cultivator of a generation died just like that, and his countless years of cultivation vanished into thin air. The Kunlun Origin Court still has to rely on itself in the future. Current Overlord, please work hard. If you can come to the illusory divine realm in the future, you can look for me. The Rainbow Chin Saint's voice rang out. When his voice landed, the sound of the Guqin came to an abrupt halt. The sage left. He came without a trace, and left without a trace. The other sovereigns also left one after another. Before leaving, they told Zhou Xuanji in the tone of a senior, hoping that he could lead the Kunlun origin court to prosperity, and that such a crisis would not happen again in the future. From the beginning to the end, they did not show themselves. Li Yingyu smiled at Sovereign Wu Zhou, then transformed into flames and disappeared into the darkness. The calamity ended just like that, and the dark void returned to silence. Supreme Wu Zhou turned around and sighed. You guys really have some tricks up your sleeves. How did you contact me and the other Supremes through the virtuous manifestation formation? As a supreme martial artist, this was the first time he knew that the virtuous manifestation formation could be used like this. Little Sovereign proudly smiled and said, "This is a magical ability that only the great sovereigns of the two courts can display. After all, ordinary great sovereigns can have the strength of the two courts after obtaining the power of the Kunlun origin court. If even the great sovereigns of the two courts can't resist this calamity, it means that the Kunlun origin court may really be in danger of destruction." Zhou Xuanji suddenly came to a realization. No wonder Little Sovereign didn't say anything before. Shen Yanqing had a complicated expression as she said, "The heritage of the Kunlun origin court is really amazing." She didn't feel too sad after witnessing her master's death. On the contrary, she had a strong interest in the Kunlun origin court. Of course, the Kunlun origin court is the origin of everything, Little Sovereign proudly stated. Although he had already fallen, his sense of responsibility and honor as a sovereign had always been there. Supreme Wu Zhou smiled. He then bowed to Little Sovereign and respectfully said, "Wu Zhou pays respect to Senior. This calamity is all thanks to Senior." Little Sovereign glanced at him and snorted. "You are really idle as a sovereign. But that's good. At least you gave him a chance." Supreme Wu Zhou immediately felt embarrassed after hearing this. He quickly changed the topic and asked Zhou Xuanji, "You said that the 9 absolutes of Qilin want to resurrect the cardinal heaven sovereigns. Do you want to join hands to go to the myriad domain devil nest and annihilate the 9 absolutes of Qilin? When I first left the Kunlun origin court, the 9 absolutes of Qilin suppressed me a lot." He didn't hide his murderous aura at all. It seemed that he was also very embarrassed in front of the 9 absolutes of Qilin. Zhou Xuanji readily agreed without hesitation. "Very well, we will meet at the Thunder Alliance in the myriad domain devil nest. I will stay there. You can find me by mentioning my name," Supreme Wu Zhou said with a grin. After saying this, he turned into a beam of light and disappeared into the darkness in the blink of an eye. Zhou Xuanji turned around and returned to the Kunlun origin court with Little Sovereign and Shen Yanqing. Shen Yanqing sighed with emotion and said, "This time, I have really opened my eyes. I have decided to stay in the Kunlun origin court. I want to see how many secrets are hidden in the Kunlun origin court." After saying this, she left alone. This girl is really heartless. She is indifferent to the death of her revered master. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said with a smile. Zhou Xuanji shook his head with a smile. He had always been helpless against Divine Star. Little Sovereign said meaningfully, "She is not heartless. On the contrary, she is not simple. Just now, I clearly felt that she was trying to suppress her aura. She is standing behind you. She is under your protection. Why would she hide her aura?" Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes upon hearing this. It was really unnecessary, unless she was afraid of a sovereign of the Kunlun origin court. But so many sovereigns and no one mentioned her. What is the reason? Thinking of what she had said to him before, Zhou Xuanji fell into deep thought. I have to be more wary of her in the future. I always feel that she is plotting something. At first, she pretended that she didn't know that she had a sister and didn't know you. But now, she is so close to you. Something is really wrong, Little Sovereign reminded in a solemn tone. Zhou Xuanji nodded before entering the sovereign plane. As soon as he entered, he suddenly stopped as a figure appeared in front of him. His whole body was shining with light. Only his figure could be seen but not his face. Chapter 904. Who are you? Zhou Xuanji asked vigilantly. The sovereigns had just left, and a mysterious person had infiltrated the sovereign's plane. This meant that this person's cultivation was extraordinary. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to appear at this juncture. The figure in the light smiled and said, Zhou Xuanji, don't be nervous. I'm not your enemy. Zhou Xuanji frowned. This voice was so familiar, as though he had heard it before. It seems like you really don't remember me. That's right, you have already become a sovereign who dominates the Kunlun origin court. How could you remember your opponent from back then? However, we haven't become opponents yet. What a pity. The other party continued with a smile, his tone filled with ridicule. As the light dissipated, a man wearing a noble golden robe appeared. His face was cold, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised. His eyes were like a king's, domineering and sharp. He wore a purple gold crown on his head, and he exuded a proud aura that looked down on all living things. Sunlight Emperor. Zhou Xuanji's pupils contracted. Why was this guy here? In the past, in the northern wilderness region, Sunlight Emperor had suppressed Xian Xianghua for thousands of years and dominated the first throne in the world. When the boundless world attacked, in order to obtain the heavenly law stone, Sunlight Emperor was sucked into the space-time turbulence and disappeared. After so many years, Zhou Xuanji had thought that he had died long ago. I didn't expect this guy to still be alive. Judging from his aura, he was also a Grand Supreme Master. Could it be that this guy was involved in another timeline like Shen Yanxing and Hongqin Supreme? Seeing Zhou Xuanji's expression, Sunlight Emperor loudly laughed and said, Do you not dare to believe it? To be honest, I'm even more shocked than you are. Originally, I thought that you were just one of my regrets in the past, but I didn't expect your growth to be so exaggerated. You actually became a great supreme of the second court in such a short time. In terms of talent, I really can't compare to you. In fact, I can even say that I'm far from you. It's like the difference between heaven and earth. Zhou Xuanji did not care about his flattery and asked, Why are you here? What do you want? Although Sunlight Emperor was not hostile, he had sneaked into the supreme plane without any warning. How could he not be vigilant? I heard your call for help and came to help. We are old friends. Don't tell me you don't welcome me? He flew up to Zhou Xuanji, looked at Little Sovereign, and nodded slightly. Little Sovereign looked at him and didn't say anything. When he saw him approaching, he said, You must have obtained the soul fusion inheritance of a sovereign. Soul fusion inheritance? What was that? Zhou Xuanji looked at Little Sovereign in confusion. That's right, that person is my benefactor. I promised him that I would protect the Kunlun origin court. Now that Zhou Xuanji is the sovereign of the Kunlun origin court, I will naturally not oppose him. He could tell that Zhou Xuanji was still very resistant to him, so he did his best to prove his position. Little Supreme stared at Sunlight Emperor and said, The soul fusion inheritance is to dedicate everything, including your soul, to the inheritor. Your own will be completely annihilated. This kind of inheritance can allow the inheritor's cultivation and realm to soar in an extremely short period of time. It's very stable. Zhou Xuanji raised his eyebrows. Yang Di's luck was that good. What kind of sacrifice did he have to make for the other party to be willing to help him? Yang Di sighed and said, Zhou Xuanji, you said that the 9 absolutes of Qilin want to revive Cardinal Heaven. I'm willing to join you and fight against the 9 absolutes of Qilin. Cardinal Heaven is the ancestor of my benefactor, and it cannot be blasphemed. Zhou Xuanji nodded and asked, What's your stage? Sunlight Emperor replied, The great supreme masters of the 3 courts have just broken through. He was 1 court higher than Zhou Xuanji, but he wasn't complacent. Based on his understanding of Zhou Xuanji, this gap wouldn't last long. The soul fusion inheritance will make your cultivation improve steadily. Zhou Xuanji will have to spend a lot of effort to catch up with you, Little Sovereign said with a smile. Little Sovereign laughed with his hands on his hips. Sunlight Emperor also laughed. He could hear the hidden meaning in Little Supreme Expert's words. Spend a lot of effort. What a good choice of words. Sunlight Emperor didn't refute. He shrugged and said with a smile, Since you have agreed, I will wait for you at the Thunder Alliance. After saying this, He turned into a ball of true sun fire, spinning and shrinking before quickly disappearing. Little Sovereign clicked his tongue in wonder and said, "It's really interesting. The Kunlun origin court has produced a lot of people with great luck in this period. It seems that it often encounters disasters, but in fact it is showing signs of revival. Maybe it will restore the prosperity of the ancient times under your leadership. You need to encourage more geniuses to grow." Zhou Xuanji nodded. He began thinking about how to discover and stimulate geniuses. A grand event like the superstar competition was not bad. However, it would be easier to find geniuses if it was developed and divided into different thresholds. He thought as he returned to the Supreme Hall. The people of the Kunlun Origin Court didn't know that the previous Supremes had just returned and helped them resolve a disaster. The Supreme Martial Artists didn't show themselves. They didn't even leave behind a word. Perhaps from their point of view, they didn't want their descendants to have any lingering thoughts. Only by relying on themselves could they truly pass on their legacy. The ancestors could not protect the descendants forever. In the space-time vortex where thunder and lightning interweaved, the giant ship of the Qilin 9 Absolutes was still sailing. Qilin Ancient Desolation sat on the deck, quietly cultivating. He suddenly opened his eyes and exclaimed in shock, "Jiang Feili is dead? Impossible. Who could kill him? Could it be those old monsters?" He immediately began to deduce Jiang Feili. However, Jiang Feili had isolated his own fate when he was still alive, fearing that he would be able to divine it. The Qilin Ancient Desolate's deduction was fruitless. He frowned and fell into deep thought. Qilin Mei came from behind, bent down and asked, "Big brother, what are you thinking about?" She rarely saw the ancient desolate Qilin in such a state of unease. The other Qilin 7 Absolutes who were cultivating also opened their eyes and looked at Qilin Ancient Desolation in doubt. "Jiang Feili is dead," the Qilin Ancient Desolation calmly said. As soon as he said this, all the Qilin Absolute were shocked. Jiang Feili had always been a formidable enemy of the Qilin 9 Absolutes. After countless years of fighting, they were unable to kill the other party. Now that they heard about Jiang Feili's tragic death, they were shocked and even more terrified. Who exactly killed Jiang Feili? The Qilin 9 Absolutes might seem majestic, but the boundless universe was vast. They did not dare to claim to be invincible. "Are we still going to carry out the Myriad Domain Devil Lair plan?" a tall black figure asked solemnly. The Qilin Ancient Desolation glanced at him and said coldly, "Of course. The other party is Jiang Feili's enemy, not ours. Moreover, if we control that power, why would we be afraid?" Hearing this, everyone felt that it made sense. However, their hearts were shrouded in a shadow that could not dissipate for a long time. At that time, I will ask an ancient great expert to take action to ensure that nothing goes wrong. He still owes me a favor. The Qilin Ancient Desolation continued to say, causing everyone to become excited. "Who?" a Qilin Absolute asked. The Qilin Ancient Desolation spat out a single word. "Hui." The others immediately opened their eyes wide and sucked in a breath of cold air. The Qilin Mei carefully asked, "Big brother, isn't this too risky?" Chapter 905. Isn't taking risks our norm? Why are you suddenly afraid now? If you are afraid, then disband the Qilin 9 Absolutes. Ancient Desolation frowned and shouted coldly. His face was filled with impatience. In the outside world, the Qilin 9 Absolutes were extremely awe-inspiring. Over time, Ancient Desolation had become extremely arrogant. Seeing his companions being afraid, he was very angry. The Qilin 9 Absolutes didn't dare to dissuade him anymore. Ancient Desolation let out a cold snort before turning around and walking toward the pavilion. The others looked at each other with different expressions. They were angry but didn't dare to speak. The atmosphere on the giant ship became extremely depressing. The Qilin 9 Absolutes each had their own agenda. They seemed to be united, but in fact, they had already fallen apart internally. Kunlun Origin Court, Supreme Palace. Zhou Xuanji was meditating and cultivating with the Emperor Sword hovering above his head. The Emperor Sword of Life and Death was transformed from the Soul Source Orb and the All Lives Brush. It was one with the Kunlun Origin Court. Zhou Xuanji was absorbing the power of the Kunlun origin court through the Emperor's Sword of Life and Death. His absorption method wasn't a one-sided absorption, but a win-win method. He fused his supreme divine power with the power of the Kunlun origin court, intertwining and tempering each other. He then guided the energy outside the Kunlun origin court to achieve a great cycle, consolidating the strength of himself and the origin court. Under such a cultivation method, Zhou Xuanji's cultivation had been steadily improving. However, he was still far from breaking through to the great sovereign of the three courts. He couldn't see the end. A soul flew out from the lesser supreme sword next to him. Little sovereign stretched and yawned, asking, "Kid, why are you still cultivating? You really don't stop for a moment." With the death of Jiang Feili, Zhou Xuanji's only enemy was the Qilin 9 Absolutes. However, the Qilin 9 Absolutes were being targeted by other sages. If he was Zhou Xuanji, he would definitely take a break. One couldn't just cultivate all the time in one's life. Not to mention that Zhou Xuanji was already very strong. He was a sovereign above the Kunlun origin court. "Is there any movement from Shen Yinxing recently?" Zhou Xuanji asked without opening his eyes. Ever since Jiang Feili died, he had been asking Little Sovereign to pay attention to Shen Yinxing. Shen Yinxing was wandering around the Kunlun origin court, as if she was looking for something. Little Sovereign shook his head and said, "I don't know. I always feel that a power is recovering in her body. Could this girl be someone else in disguise?" With this, Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and frowned instinctively. The term Little Supreme Being was too terrifying. If Shen Yinxing was not Shen Yinxing, wouldn't he be surrounded by danger during this period of time? "Do you have any proof?" Zhou Xuanji asked. Little Sovereign shook his head in response. He smiled and said, "I was just guessing." He then changed the topic and said, "Speaking of which, everything has a price. The speed of your cultivation breakthrough is already exaggerated enough. The same is true for Shen Yinxing, Shen Tang, and Yang Di. I guess they will have to pay a painful price. Shen Tang will forever be trapped in the sovereign realm of laws. It will be difficult for her to become a great supreme being. That Sunlight Emperor seems to be high-spirited and in an extraordinary state. However, the soul fusion inheritance is not so perfect. I can feel that his eyes are abnormal. There are two souls in them. As for the divine pinching star, I can't see it at the moment, which means there's a problem." Zhou Xuanji furrowed his brow. Listening to Little Sovereign's words, it seemed that Shen Yinxing and the other two were about to face misfortune. Puzzled, he asked, "Wait, why does Yang Di have two souls? Didn't you say that the soul fusion inheritance is the most perfect inheritance method?" Little Sovereign suddenly smiled. His smile was extremely sinister. He said in a meaningful tone, "I was just bluffing. When he first appeared, I noticed that there was another soul in his eyes. I know that guy. He used to be in existence like the evil mother spirit controller. I deliberately said that to make Yang Di let his guard down." How despicable. Zhou Xuanji looked at Little Sovereign with a complicated look in his eyes. This guy is too sinister. Will he plot against me in the future? Little Sovereign faked a cough and said, "What do you mean? I have done my best for you. You actually doubt me. It hurts me so much." Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes at him. He didn't bother to answer. After a few breaths of silence, Zhou Xuanji couldn't help but ask, "What will happen to Yang Di? Will he be possessed?" Yang Di's return this time showed kindness to him, which changed his impression of Yang Di. The thought that the high-spirited Yang Di was about to be possessed made him feel a little uncomfortable in his heart. Who knows? Anyway, it won't end well. Don't even think about intervening. You have already been targeted by the ancient life lamp. Do you want to be targeted by another evil? Little Sovereign snorted. Zhou Xuanji didn't think much about it. Yang Di had his own life. He didn't care about it. He changed the topic to Supreme Crimson Dust. "Don't ask. When the time comes, you will understand everything. Instead of worrying about others, it's better to think about yourself," Little Sovereign said impatiently. Little Sovereign said impatiently, "How come this brat's heart warmed up after becoming a sovereign? This isn't a good thing." Perhaps because he absorbed the power of the Kunlun origin court. This kid has seen too many things in the world. He rolled his eyes and began to think about how to refine Zhou Xuanji's Dao heart. In a great world, Shen Yinxing strolled forward. Gloomy mist billowed. She was surrounded by mountains that looked like giant devils. She raised her right hand and said to her palm, "Is it here?" A pair of eyes emerged from her palm. This pair of eyes was cold and filled with evil qi. It turned forward. Shen Yinxing immediately understood and continued moving forward. Rumble! The earth suddenly shook violently. Coffins covered in soil rose from the ground, raising a cloud of dust. The giant mountain in front of her directly broke, as if it had been split in half by a divine sword. Shen Yinxing's face was expressionless. She turned into a ray of light and flew between the two halves of the mountain, disappearing without a trace. After 10 breaths, mortal sovereign appeared. She frowned and looked over, murmuring, "Sure enough." Her eyes turned cold, and her body dissipated into wisps of the red dust qi, sinking into the flying dust. Supreme Palace. Zhou Xuanji was still cultivating when little sovereign woke him up. "That girl has started to act. I'm very curious. Is there any secret hidden in the Kunlun origin court?" Little sovereign said with narrowed eyes. Even a sovereign couldn't completely see through the Kunlun origin court. For example, Sovereign Kong Sheng had been hiding in the origin court to cultivate for countless years, unknown to anyone. Zhou Xuanji activated the exterminating divine eyes and locked onto Shen Yinxing's aura. But he couldn't see what Shen Yinxing was doing. There was a layer of mysterious power that isolated Zhou Xuanji's divine will, making it impossible for him to spy on Shen Yinxing. This kind of power wasn't strong. It was extremely weak, but it could completely block the divine will of a sovereign. "Is what you said true?" Zhou Xuanji murmured. A cold gleam flashed in his eyes. If this Shen Yinxing wasn't the real Shen Yinxing, and she would harm the Kunlun origin court, then he wouldn't show any mercy. "Keep watching and you will understand. I hope that what she is looking for is not what I fear the most," little sovereign said, shaking his head. His tone was full of deep meaning. Chapter 906. "Oh, what do you fear the most in the Kunlun origin court?" Zhou Xuanji asked. He could see every corner of the Kunlun origin court, but that was only on the surface. He couldn't see all the planes thoroughly. Little Supreme shrugged and said, "It's an evil treasure more powerful than the Soul Source bead and the All Lives brush. You can't even say its name, or you will suffer a backlash." Zhou Xuanji frowned. Why did the Kunlun origin court hide such a terrifying evil treasure? Wait a minute. Could it be related to the Holy Ghost? Ever since he had become a supreme being, Nan Tianyi had sealed the Holy Ghost in an independent plane and made the Tianyi divine range guard it. Although the Holy Ghost had stopped moving, the panic it had caused back then was still vivid in his mind. Zhou Xuanji had to be cautious. Why is the Holy Ghost born? Listening to Little Sovereign's previous words, he obviously knew the Holy Ghost's body. Could it be that it was because of this evil treasure that someone became a Holy Ghost? He looked up at Little Sovereign and asked with his eyes. Little Sovereign nodded slightly. Some things could not be said, but they could be communicated with eye contact. Zhou Xuanji fell into deep thought. It seemed like he couldn't completely abandon the Kunlun origin court in the future. If something exploded in the Kunlun origin court, wouldn't it be a monstrous disaster? This had been the case when Wu Zhou had been in power. In the rolling black mist, Shen Yinxing floated in the air. She looked down. The mountain stream below was like an abyss, dark and gloomy, and the whistling wind was like the wailing of ghosts and the howling of wolves. She raised her right hand with her palm facing downwards. Her eyes widened, and 2 streaks of bloody light shot out, breaking through the strands of black mist and penetrating downwards. Rumble! The earth shook and a terrifying aura erupted. The wind was blowing wildly, blowing Shen Yinxing's hair. She squinted her eyes, trying to see everything below. Xiao! A scepter that looked like scorched wood suddenly rushed out. A fist-sized bead of blood was embedded in the top of the scepter. Fresh blood kept flowing out of it, making it look extremely terrifying. Shen Yinxing immediately stretched out her hand and grabbed the blood bead black staff. She frowned, her right hand trembling. Meanwhile, the entire Kunlun origin court was shrouded in a terrifying aura. All living beings felt an inexplicable sense of panic, as if a great disaster was about to befall them. What happened? Could it be that another supreme martial artist from outside the court has come to attack? That's impossible. How long has it been? The calamity of the Kunlun Origin Court is coming again. Everyone be careful. What a terrifying feeling. Even when I faced the Sword Emperor back then, I did not feel so terrified. Don't be afraid, we have a supreme being. He will protect us. All the creatures in the divine ranges were discussing this matter in fear, comforting each other. Zhou Xuanji appeared beside Shen Yanqing out of thin air, and grabbed her wrist. In an instant, a sinister and powerful force entered his body through his palm, wreaking havoc in his muscles and bones. He frowned, and immediately used his supreme god force to resist. The two powers clashed, and with an explosion, Zhou Xuanji's consciousness exploded. Following this he saw scenes. The Grand Sovereigns held the blood-bead black staff, and laughed wildly. Their postures and smiles were the same, crazy and evil. What is this? Zhou Xuanji was shocked. Could these be scenes of the previous owners of the blood bead's black staff wielding it? Could these great supremes be the supremes of the Kunlun Origin Court? The scene kept changing, getting faster and faster. Zhou Xuanji wanted to break free from this illusion, but he felt an extremely powerful suppression on his soul, making it impossible for him to break free. Humph! Zhou Xuanji's eyes narrowed as he cast the sword fusion technique. At the same time, he created countless avatars that rushed in all directions. Boom! 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 The surrounding illusions shattered one after another. Gusts of wind swept over like the turbulence of time and space. He took the opportunity to cast the exterminating divine light to destroy everything as his consciousness returned to reality. The first thing he saw when he opened his eyes was Shen Yanqing's face. Her face turned hideous as blood streaks crawled up her cheeks. Her long hair turned white, fluttering in the wind. She grabbed the blood bead black staff with both hands, looking extremely crazy. She wouldn't let go no matter what. At this moment, she seemed to have become another person. A person that Zhou Xuanji had never seen before. The Lesser Supreme Sword appeared behind him as Little Sovereign's voice came. Sure enough, it's this thing. Don't worry about her, run. His tone was incomparably anxious and terrified. Just as Zhou Xuanji was about to let go, Mortal Sovereign flew over from afar. Pinching star. Mortal Sovereign reached out and grabbed Shen Yanqing's shoulder. Zhou Xuanji's eyes widened as he shouted, "Get away!" As soon as he said this, Mortal Sovereign's hand fell on Shen Yanqing's shoulder. Zhou Xuanji could clearly feel the strange force fiercely attacking Mortal Sovereign's hand. He immediately used his supreme divine power to block it. But even so, he couldn't completely block it. Mortal Sovereign gritted his teeth, lowered his head, and let out a painful groan. She looked at Shen Yanqing and said with difficulty, "Pinching star, what are you trying to do?" The devil-like Shen Yanqing glanced at her, and said with a sinister smile, "Stupid! Do you really think I'm your sister? Your sister is already dead. I'm already a different person." Hearing this, Mortal Sovereign's pupils suddenly shrank. She was dumbfounded. All along, she had been looking for Shen Yanqing as her goal. After learning that Shen Yanqing had already died, she felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She seemed to have lost her soul, forgetting her own pain. "Then who the hell are you?" Zhou Xuanji asked, staring at Shen Yanqing. His intuition told him that the person in front of him was Shen Yanqing. Could it be that she has been possessed? Shen Yanqing looked at him, and said with a contemptuous smile, "You don't deserve to know my name. I can only tell you that Shen Yanqing is indeed my previous identity, but she has already fallen in the passage between the two worlds. I'm just using her identity to gain a foothold. Let me go, and you and I can still maintain a friendly relationship. If you insist on stopping me, you will regret it." She pulled hard, trying to take away the blood bead black staff. But Zhou Xuanji's strength continued to increase. She couldn't take it away by force. Little Sovereign's voice rang in Zhou Xuanji's ears. "Let her go. This thing isn't a good treasure. She will reap what she sowed. The real treasure is down there. This kind of evil thing can be suppressed. Naturally, there is something that is not weaker than it." Zhou Xuanji furrowed his brow. He hesitated for a moment before letting go. Shen Nianqing's smile was extremely evil. With a shake of her shoulder, mortal sovereign was sent flying back while vomiting blood. The blood bead black staff in her hand quickly disappeared. Zhou Xuanji, after getting along with you during this period of time, I still like you very much. We will meet again in the future. At that time, you will see my true body. At that time, I will let you understand how powerful I am. Shen Nianqing burst into laughter. Her voice echoed between the heavens and the earth for a long time. Zhou Xuanji took mortal sovereign into his arms and healed her. He scanned her with his divine will, but he could no longer find Shen Nianqing. What the hell does she want? Zhou Xuanji furrowed his brow. His heart was filled with anger. Little sovereign's voice rang in his ear. Quick! Go down. Don't let it run away. This is a great opportunity. Chapter 907. Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath and put mortal sovereign down. Then, he swooped down and disappeared into the dark mountain stream. After about 15 breaths of time, he suddenly rushed out, holding a red bead that was surrounded by flames. It was as big as a human head, and looked very similar to the blood beads on the black staff. Compared to the blood pearl, this red pearl had more righteous qi. Holding it in his hand, Zhou Xuanji's eyes were filled with passion. What a powerful strength! Every time his spiritual force probed inside, his soul would tremble. He even felt that if he tried to force his way in, his soul would be severely injured. What is the name of this treasure? Zhou Xuanji asked in a low voice. He cast a glance at Sovereign Hong Chun, who was healing himself in the distance. Autark crimson dust flew over, an ugly look on her face. The injury she had sustained had caused her to lose a great deal of blood, and even her soul had been damaged. But what hurt her the most was her heart. Knowing that Shen Nianqing had died a long time ago, Hong Chun's supremacy lost his soul, and lost his purpose of living. She came before Zhou Xuanji, but did not congratulate him. She was still in a daze. I don't know the origins of this orb either. There are no records of its name in history either. I've only seen it once, and that was when my master took me on an adventure. I came back to search for it after I became a sovereign, but I was forced into retreat by the evil being from before. My cultivation as a great sovereign of the three courts directly dropped to reciprocity sovereign. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't have died so easily back then. Little sovereign replied with a sigh in his tone. Zhou Xuanji was speechless. Was it really that terrifying? Fortunately, he didn't forcibly take away the blood bead black staff. Otherwise, he would have followed in the footsteps of Little Supreme Master. He immediately led Red Bead and Autark Crimson Dust away. Inside the Supreme Hall, Zhou Xuanji sat on the golden throne. He looked down at Hong Chun Sovereign and said with a frown, Don't think too much. I think she is Shen Nianqing. It's just that her body might be occupied by another person. I can feel her soul. After all, I have the soul origin. Upon hearing this, Autark Crimson Dust jerked his head up, a look of delight on his face. Your task now is to work hard on your cultivation. Rather than being depressed, why not work hard? What do you think? Zhou Xuanji said earnestly. Supreme Crimson Dust took a deep breath and tried to adjust his mood. She nodded at Zhou Xuanji and left. Looking at her back, Zhou Xuanji did not try to persuade her anymore. If it were him, he would also want to be alone. He sighed softly, then took out the red bead and observed it carefully. The Lesser Supreme Sword appeared next to him. Little Supreme Sword floated out and excitedly said, Hurry up and give it a name. Although he didn't know the origin of this treasure, nor did he know how strong it was, he believed that the red pearl represented a great opportunity that even grand sovereigns would find difficult to obtain. Zhou Xuanji said, Let's call it the Fated Fate Pearl. It meant that he had come across an opportunity. Little Sovereign rolled his eyes and said, This name is too vulgar, quickly change it. Zhou Xuanji's eyes sparkled as he stared at the Fated Fate Pearl and said, I believe this is its name, now and in the future. He played with the Fated Fate bead repeatedly, trying to see through it. In his eyes, the Fated Fate Pearl was very mysterious, and this kind of mystery had an irresistible attraction to him. If you want to comprehend its true essence, I'm afraid you can't find the answer in the Kunlun origin court. You have to go to the endless universe. Little Sovereign continued. His tone was heavy as he warned. Don't take out the fated fate pearl outside, to avoid unnecessary trouble. Zhou Xuanji nodded, and began thinking about when to leave. He also wanted to go to the Thunder Alliance, and the Yen Alliance. There was also the illusory god realm, that Hongqin Saint Lord had mentioned. The endless universe was so big. There must be many mysteries that he couldn't imagine. Maybe this pearl will change your fate, Little Sovereign said meaningfully. Little Sovereign said meaningfully as his eyes flickered. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, I have already become a grand sovereign. Is there still a fate to speak of? In response, Little Sovereign just smiled and didn't say anything. In the dark void, Shen Yanqing was sitting on an old tree. Under the tree was a meteorite shining with a metallic luster. She was looking at the blood bead black staff with a frown. Why not? Could it be that the bead has weakened its power? As soon as she thought of the fated fate pearl, her eyes turned cold. The fated fate pearl had a great restraining effect on her. She didn't dare to touch it. She looked ahead and murmured, It seems that I have to go to that place. She held the blood bead black staff tightly, absorbing its power. A light appeared in front of her. The old tree swayed as leaves drifted down. She immediately got up and said, Who dares to play tricks in front of me? Balls of raging flames swept out from the bright light, like a blooming flower of fire, bright and beautiful. Evildoer. I have been waiting for you for a long time. Liang You's cold snort resounded, causing Shen Yanqing to narrow her eyes. Sure enough, when they gathered outside the Kunlun origin court last time, this guy had seen through her identity. Shen Yanqing didn't panic. Instead, she grinned and said, Kid, do you want to experience the pain of the past again? Liang Yu stepped out of the fireworks. His face was filled with killing intent. He coldly smiled and said that was the past. I have been reborn, and you are no longer as invincible as you were in the past. His eyes locked onto the blood bead black staff. A fiery light flashed in his eyes. Shen Yanqing raised the blood bead black staff and sneered. What? You want it? Are you worthy? After saying this, she waved the staff and struck forward. Liang Yu didn't retreat. Instead, he charged toward her. Hundreds of years later, Zhou Xuanji, Jiang Shui, Zhou Shaoxian, and Xian Xianghua gathered in front of the Supreme Palace. He looked at the three women and said with a smile, It's okay, it's not life and death. No need to frown. Xian Xianghua curled her lips and said, Since it's not dangerous, why didn't you take me with you? Her cultivation had already reached Origin Fusion Divine Lord 8th level. She was still far from 9th level. Not making progress for a long time made her very annoyed. Yes, the gap between us and you is getting bigger and bigger. Zhou Shaoxian nodded, and said with a pitiful look on her face. She was hoping that Zhou Xuanji would agree. Jiang Shui, on the other hand, was very calm. She just looked at him quietly. Zhou Xuanji glared at them and said, When I am strong enough, I will take you out sooner or later. Don't forget what I said to all living beings before. We will expand out sooner or later. When the time comes, you will be able to go out. Zhou Shaoxian wanted to continue, but she was stopped by Jiang Shui. Listen to your father. We have to believe in him, Jiang Shui said with a soft smile, looking at Zhou Xuanji with gentle eyes. Zhou Xuanji took her hand and said, The superstar competition is about to begin. This is a brand new superstar competition. You must pay close attention and prepare well. I will leave an outer soul doppelganger to help you. You can contact me if you have any trouble. Jiang Shui nodded and said excitedly, I will try my best. Zhou Xuanji looked at Xian Xianghua and said, You have to help her too. Xian Xianghua rolled her eyes at him and snorted, Nonsense, of course. Chapter 908. After chatting with his family for a while, Zhou Xuanji left on his sword. Jiang Shui raised her head and muttered, I really hope I can see the scene of the Kunlun origin court attacking the endless universe. Xian Xianghua put an arm around her shoulders and smiled. Don't worry. That day won't be long. The speed at which this brat grows is something we can never imagine. Zhou Shaoxian rubbed her chin and pondered. She was thinking about the difference between her and Zhou Xuanji. She had now begun to be independent. Although she had gained a lot of training in the Kunlun Origin Court, she was increasingly aware of how insignificant she was. Only when she faced everything alone could she truly feel how powerful Zhou Xuanji was. Wanshan Great Thousand has an opportunity that I left for you. Go. Zhou Xuanji's voice suddenly came into Zhou Xiaoshuan's ears, which stunned her. Her eyes reddened, but she didn't cry. Instead, she laughed. Passing through the darkness, Zhou Xuanji flew on his sword. He played with the faded fate pearl in his hand, thinking about its profoundness. Little Sovereign, who was floating behind him, was also thinking. They were already obsessed with the faded pearl. Little Sovereign was even more frantic than Zhou Xuanji. At first, he was patient. He wanted to wait until he went to the endless universe before comprehending this treasure. But when he saw Zhou Xuanji meditating, his heart itched. This is not. Because he couldn't suppress his curiosity, he also fell into the trap. He and Zhou Xuanji could look at the faded fate pearl for many years without moving. The two of them walked aimlessly, their gazes locked onto the faded pearl. In the blink of an eye, they flew past dozens of planes and territories. During this period of time, they seemed to be frozen in time. Their eyeballs didn't even move. Boom! Suddenly, a rumbling sound came from ahead, startling the two of them, as if they had just awoken from a dream. The Life and Death Emperor Sword and Soul Kunlun sword instinctively appeared in front of Zhou Xuanji, guarding against any enemy attacks. Zhou Xuanji reacted quickly and stored the faded fate pearl into the supreme storage. Little Sovereign glanced at the red domain in front of him. There were countless stars scattered all over. Most of them were very small, like meteorites, but there were living beings living in them. These creatures had powerful chi and blood, but they didn't have intelligence. They were muddle-headed and couldn't escape the gravitational pull of the stars. It's fine. It's just space-time collapsing. Little Sovereign shook his head. Just as he was about to continue speaking, his expression froze. Zhou Xuanji frowned as well. He asked, "Have we been targeted?" The space in front of him fluctuated, and a pair of scarlet eyes opened. Its pupils were larger than all the stars here. A terrifying killing intent swept over them like a tidal wave, drowning them. Zhou Xuanji's robe fluttered in the wind. He activated the sword fusion technique and raised his aura to the maximum. Without waiting for the other party to appear, he raised his sword and slashed out. Ultimate Chaos Dao, boundless sword chi tore through the universe and shattered the pair of scarlet eyes. Roar! A roar exploded, reversing time and space. Zhou Xuanji's soul trembled, and violet light shot out of his eyes, freezing this shattered space-time. Not good. It was a jade-eyed Yamatoutai. He was Gu Tianlin's mount. It was an ancient demonic beast that once dominated an area of the boundless universe. Cried Little Sovereign. His fear made Zhou Xuanji feel a sense of danger. Zhou Xuanji charged straight into the space-time turbulence and into the absolute time realm to avoid the green-eyed Yamatoutai. No matter how strong the jade-eyed Yamatoutai was, it wasn't strong enough to kill its way into absolute time. Zhou Xuanji asked, "Was that demonic beast a coincidence? How could he not think too much about encountering a rare ancient demonic beast?" Little Sovereign hesitated and said, "I don't think so. After all, this beast has a master. Its first master is Gu Juejiao, who is also Gu Tianlin's father. You should know who Gu Juejiao is. He is a legend in the endless universe. He is close to the cardinal heaven realm." Ancient prodigies. Zhou Xuanji's pupils contracted abruptly, and his heart was in great shock. Gu Juejiao was an existence that shook the long river of history of the Kunlun Origin Court. If a cardinal heaven expert was praised as the strongest, there would definitely be people who would refute it. Moreover, only Gu Juejiao could stand side by side with a cardinal heaven expert. Zhou Xuanji frowned and said, "Could it be that the ancient genius is here too? He has his eyes on me?" When Jiang Feili attacked, many supreme sages gathered outside the Kunlun Origin Court, but most of the supreme sages didn't show up. Even little supreme sages couldn't recognize their voices. Little Sovereign was also worried about the problem that Zhou Xuanji mentioned. Gu Juejiao was an existence that Jiang Feili could not compare to. If even he wanted to target Zhou Xuanji, It wouldn't be good. They could feel the killing intent of the jade-eyed Yamatoutai. The two fell into silence. What should we do now? Is there another way to the Thunder Alliance? Zhou Xuanji asked. He didn't know how to go to the Thunder Alliance, but Little Sovereign knew. Little Sovereign furrowed his brow and said, Let's avoid it for a while. That guy can't always wait for you outside. Zhou Xuanji agreed with him. He immediately took out the Fated Fate Pearl and began to observe it. Little Sovereign's eyes were also fixed on it as he concentrated on it. Once again, the two seemed to have lost their souls. They didn't say a word. After an unknown period of time, Zhou Xuanji came back to his senses and looked at Little Sovereign. He saw that this guy's eyes were wide open like a ghost. Zhou Xuanji angrily said, Wake up, shouldn't we set off? Zhou Xuanji's heart skipped a beat. He didn't notice it before. But when he saw Little Sovereign's expression, he inexplicably panicked. This is too terrifying. He suddenly felt that the Fated Fate Pearl wasn't a supreme treasure, but an evil object. Little Sovereign woke up from his trance and subconsciously replied, Let's go. Wait. Don't worry. He furrowed his brow and began to think seriously. Zhou Xuanji's blood ran cold when he saw his reaction. The Fated Fate Pearl could really make them lose their way. Even someone as strong as Little Sovereign would be the same. He immediately raised this question. The Thunder Alliance wasn't important right now. The key was how to deal with the Fated Fate Pearl. Little Sovereign furrowed his brow after hearing this. His soul slightly trembled as he muttered, Damn, it's okay if I didn't say it. But now, he also began to feel afraid. If the enemy attacked without anyone knowing, and they were addicted to the Fated Fate Pearl, wouldn't that be the end of them? The more he thought about it, the more afraid he became. He looked at the Fated Fate Pearl with fear in his eyes. Sure enough, there's no such thing as a perfect treasure in this world. The better it is, the more dangerous it is, he muttered to himself. His expression was full of vigilance. Zhou Xuanji squeezed hard, trying to crush the Fated Fate Pearl. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't crush the Fated Fate Pearl. Little Sovereign took a deep breath and said, It seems that we need to find Rainbow Qin Saint Lord. Only an existence like him can understand the mysteries of the Fated Fate Pearl. Zhou Xuanji asked, If Rainbow Qin Saint Lord is also deceived, wouldn't it be a disaster? Little Sovereign glared at him and snorted, You can't imagine how powerful a Saint Lord is. If this pearl was really that terrifying, the Kunlun Origin Court would have long perished. Zhou Xuanji felt that it made sense. He then put away the Fated Fate Pearl and prepared to leave the Absolute Time realm. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.